Hello, everybody. Welcome to Frame Trap. We're going to be talking a lot about Pokemon today. And joining me in that discussion, we have Michael Damiani.
Yo, how's it going?
Good. And Brad.
Yo.
Lee Ellis. I feel like I should say your full name when I'm introducing you for the podcast, but I would never say that to you.
No one calls me my full name.
I would just say Brad, yeah.
Maybe like my family, that's about it.
Yeah. My grandma calls me Benjamin. And I hate it, but like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
You know, what are you gonna say to your grandma?
I don't hate my full name, at least, I guess. But no one calls me.
I think Bradley's.
Yeah, but no one. Yeah, just no one really calls me that. But I just do it because it's my actual full name.
I feel like
official stuff.
No one should be named Benjamin except for like an 18th century like oil baron or something. I don't know, or 19th century oil
Benjamin
baron.
Franklin or something.
Yeah, or Benjamin. Yeah, exactly.
I think of Breaking Benjamin.
Do you?
Yeah. I can't name one song. Or
I can name one.
I
I can only name one song from Breaking Benjamin. It's So Cold.
So Cold.
I think that's what it's called. You're so cold. You remember that?
No, I don't remember that. I just remember the band name.
Yeah, Breaking Benjamin.
Does anyone call you like Benny or anything?
No. A long time ago, like late elementary school, early middle school, Benji was my nickname.
Benji? Okay.
Which sounds like a old nickname from like the 50s or 60s, I feel like. But yeah, Benji. Was that. Otherwise, it's just Ben.
Yeah.
I wish my last name was cool enough to be said as my name, because like Damiani, that's a great name. Yeah, more. It's there's two O's right next to each other.
Yeah, we have like call a lot of people here by their last
Jones,
names. It's weird.
Huber,
Blood.
Yeah, I mean, how do you not call them Blood?
It's like people have more get called by their last names more than our first names here.
Yeah.
Having more people call him Dan.
Dan freaks me out.
Dan freaks me out. It's just uncomfortable.
It feels like a true friend. When they call him Dan, it's like someone that he's close with.
Dude, like Marvel Multiverse Bloodworth.
Yeah.
He's only referred to as Dan.
Dan.
Dan is a variant.
I just think it's Street Fighter, which is cool.
Yeah.
I love
that
Dan
is cool.
Street Fighter.
Go. 2022. Do you guys have any goals for the year? Do you guys do any like resolutions or anything like that?
Goals?
Yeah.
I
I was thinking about it just before I came up to the studio, and I was like, I don't even have any resolutions. I guess I want to read more.
I don't think about resolutions that much. Work out more?
That's
I
a good
do,
goal.
but more.
That's a good goal.
And save more money.
It's a good one.
Saving money is a good one.
Yeah.
I'm
I feel like that's
sign
just a
into
goal
that
for
one.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one. Cutting down cost on food for the year.
Yeah,
It's
that's a great one, Damiani. Yeah.
See if I can stick with that.
Since the pandemic started in 2020, I've been doing a lot of delivery, a lot of DoorDash.
Sure.
And like we're trying to
Nip that in the butt.
make that go way down.
I never do DoorDash. Like, how much more is it usually? I guess it depends on what you get.
I can't tell you exactly.
Okay.
But it's more. It's definitely.
Yeah.
I'll say that every time I've looked it up to consider it, I get so offended by the price increase that I walk to my car. I'm like, nope.
Yeah, I
feel like whatever you're getting is like $10 more. I don't know the exact price, but
it's not even that. They do like they offer to do pickup in store, but they still mark their prices up for the base items as well. So I'm like, oh, they gotta make money somehow.
It's cool
I guess, but
that you can do that. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
then they get you, and we signed up for this. Like I have it, and my wife had it, where you can do like DoorDash Premium, so you like save money per order.
It's crazy.
Yeah, no, we're trying to like.
What an age!
I haven't ordered DoorDash in like 2 weeks, so it's been going good.
I think of Death Stranding.
Dude, if Sam Bridges, that's his name, right? If Sam
Bridges,
like deliver, I would order it all the time.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude.
And like there's a chance that like he dropped it,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, sorry. All right, it's all right, Sam.
Damiani, anything you want to do in 2022? Doesn't have to be like, what are those called? A resolution. It's just something you want to do.
Besides save money on food, probably keep up the diet I'm on.
Nice.
It's been going pretty well.
Nice.
It's a lot easier to do. It was very tough at the beginning.
Yeah.
It started in fall of like 2020, like October.
Yeah.
So it'll be a little over a year that I've been on it, so it's been pretty good.
Hell yeah.
Just like sticking to that. But I do want to start adding more outdoor walking to that. I was always worried if I started doing like rigorous, even just not rigorous, just even doing any kind of exercise on a daily basis on top of my diet, I worried it would screw with my diet. Like, oh, I did walking day. I'm hungry. I'm going to eat a little bit. And then start messing up with my diet and be like, oh, but I'm offsetting because I've done that before.
Yeah.
And for me, the amount of workout doesn't usually offset what I start when I start eating poorly. So I'm like, no, I really got to nail down this diet first and then try that. And now I feel like I'm in a spot where I'm like, I'm like, I feel like really good about this, and I'd like to try adding on to this to see if I can push it even a little further.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah, there was a short period of time, like a month or two, where I was like going to the skate park all the time, and that felt really good. And I've just completely fallen off of that.
It's easy to fall off.
It is. It's just like, it's so easy to be like, well, I don't have time for that right now. And you really got to prioritize just getting out there and moving.
I just tell myself, stop being such a baby.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what you got to do. You got to give yourself tough love.
I'm just like, just do it, Brad.
I am thrilled to talk about Pokemon. Pokemon Legends Arceus, to be more specific. And Damiani, you've been playing it as well. I am reviewing another game that is coming out very shortly. And so I haven't been able to put as much time as I wanted to into Pokemon. I'm about 6-ish hours in. And I think it was on Huber syndrome, where I was like, I'm super looking forward to Pokemon. I have no idea if it's going to be good or bad. I love it. Like, I like it way more than I was expecting to like it, and we can get into all of the reasons why and all of that. But Damiani, I'm kind of curious about what your gut reaction is.
Yeah, it's interesting because so many people I see are having very positive reactions to this. But it's also funny. It was in passing, but there was some truth to it. On the other day on it's like a group stream, you said like sometimes you feel like people are just a little bit more generous to Pokemon in general.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And I wonder if there's a little bit of that because we've been groomed for so long to think of Pokemon in a certain way for the mainline entries, that doing something this different feels so good. But in the grand scheme, looking at the larger picture, it's like, man, this is stuff they probably should have been doing like 10 years ago. And like, it's they got to start somewhere. So I got to give credit where credit's due. Like this definitely feels more exciting to play. I feel a better sense of wonder. And so on that level, I am enjoying it. And I'm glad, and I hope they build upon this. I hope this is successful enough that they build upon this, because I think this is the direction they need to go. Yeah. That being said, there's so many things that are just coming to my attention as I play it that I'm like, man, I kind of wish they would do this. And a lot of it, part of it falls into the category of technical/graphical issues. Yeah. The other category is just straight up quality of life problems. Then there seem to be, for me, there's just a lot of them like, it's just because they didn't do this before and they just don't know about it, but so many other games do this. I'm like, please.
There was one thing where I'm like, this isn't that big of a deal, but I have no idea why you're doing it this way. Because you do a mission and then you meet this guy and he's like, do you want to like increase your bag inventory by 1? And you're like, sure. And the way that they like contextualize it in the world is they're like, I'll show you how to fold things like more neatly in your satchel. That's what he says.
Why can't he just give you a bigger one?
And then you're like, sure. And he's like, hey, you got to pay me. And then you pay him. And then he's like, I'll show you how to fold stuff even better. And you pay, and it's just every time you do this, the price goes up, and you increase your inventory by 1. And you're just like, Pokemon, why not just have me pay whatever amount to increase it like as much as I can?
Instead
it's like,
of
why?
1 at a time?
Why would you do this? It's so funny.
They're just trying to be cheeky, but that works a couple times.
Yeah, like I said, like individually, it's not that big of a deal. It was just like such an odd moment that that stuck out. But to get into the nitty gritty, I purposefully kind of stayed away from a lot of the Legends stuff. I feel like I went into this pretty blind, which I think being blind to it, other than, seeing how it looked, which worried me, might be contributing to my positive feelings, because I think what it does, like, there's so many things I want to talk about, I don't even really know where to start. The first thing is, this has to be the best Pokemon story in a long time. Like, and it's not, like, amazing, but this whole idea of taking Pokemon back to a very early time, where you're in this village, right? And so things aren't as technologically advanced as they're used to being in Pokemon. And there's all this superstition going on. There's all of these legends. You have these two different groups that like have different interpretations, basically, of this almighty power. All that stuff is super interesting, but it doesn't do the horrible Pokemon thing. Like, I hate starting a Pokemon game and being like, I'm going to enjoy this in like 10 hours. Like, it'll take off like its brutal training wheels and like really let me go and get into things. I feel like it's nudging its characters in, all of whom are like really likable. Like, everybody has like a sense of personality to them. They're very identifiable. They're lighthearted, but not in a way that is annoying. They kind of like set them up and then they're like, okay, just go play. And you can go and just follow the main story if you want, but you have plenty of time to be like, I just want to explore. I just want to work on the Pokedex. I just want to, gain experience for my Pokemon. I want to do research tasks. I want to go collect materials. Like, you have these huge swaths of time where you feel like you get to do exactly what you want to do. And like, it doesn't take that long until you get a mount and you're just like, I can just fly through this place. It's no big deal. And like, the base is really, really, really good. I think it kind of like takes the accessibility of something like a Let's Go Pikachu or a Let's Go Eevee, but it doesn't totally remove the depth, right? Where like, if there are Pokemon in the field, you can just throw a Pokeball or a Pokeball variant to try to catch them. But there's some skill involved with that where if you hit them from the back, you have a better chance of catching them. Oh. Or like, some of them are very skittish if they see you. Or some of them don't want to be caught or unless you battle them, or at the very least are like super prone to battle. And then, like, if you use, like, a heavy ball, which is a better ball for catching things, it has, like, no range, and so you have to get really close. And it's just so much better than randomly running around in the grass being like, okay, there's a 5% chance for this Pokemon to spawn. I hope I get it. Like, it makes them actually feel like living things existing in a field rather than just, like, math you're trying to get lucky at, in a way.
Do they just kind of appear out of nowhere though when you're walking around?
They're like set parts. So like, let's say you have this field, right? And it's like, okay, the Psyducks are going to be over in this part, or this type of Pokemon is going to be in this section, and then that also changes depending on time of day as well.
Oh, okay.
And I think they do. I think the way they handle the Pokedex is really, really smart, because that is tied into progression. So it's not just like, oh, I want to see every Pokemon or I want to catch every Pokemon. Each individual Pokemon has like a series of tasks, and you get research points for the more tasks you complete. So it's like, catch one of these, catch 3 of these, have it do this move, catch it without it seeing you. And so you have like all these little objectives. And then for all of those that you complete, you get stars and your rank goes up. So the more stars that you have, the higher your rank. And then it's like, if you get another star, you'll be able to level up your Pokemon more and have them listen to you.
Oh.
And so...
Is that what your rank does?
That's what your rank does. So it's kind of like, it kind of serves the function of like a gym badge. Got it. Basically.
Oh, yeah. I like that there's like no gyms, right? Do you have a stupid rival again?
Well, I haven't encountered any gyms so far.
Okay.
And I would imagine that this is a time period where that doesn't make sense because they're still... They really early. Just invented the Pokeball.
Yeah. I mean, this sounds the most interesting to me because, like, I know the gyms and, like, the trainer and the rivals, like, very traditional Pokemon, but, like, for someone who's, like, doesn't care about Pokemon, that sounds more interesting to me this time around.
It's way more interesting, and there was this really cool fight that I did where it was against this giant Pokemon, and he had this huge life bar. And what's interesting is, like, your trainer, like, the Pokemon can attack you.
Oh,
and so
that's cool.
You don't want to get attacked, and so you're fighting this thing, and you have to dodge out of the way.
Like,
and then
actually dodge?
Yeah, like, you as the trainer, you have to dodge out of the way. You're part of the Survey Corps. and then you have to throw this balm at it to weaken it. And then you can use your Pokemon to basically stun it, and so you can throw a lot of balm at it, and it's in a frenzied state. And so this balm makes it so it's not frenzied anymore.
Wait, is combat still turn-based?
So, yes, I think where you're getting confused is like you're the trainer, you're moving around the field, like something can attack you, but the things that you could throw two things basically. You can throw items or you can throw a Pokemon. If you throw a Pokemon at it, you go into a traditional turn-based style
got
thing.
it.
But otherwise, it's all happening in real time.
You have to initiate combat with them. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, and so that boss battle was really cool and really creative. And it fit the story of the world super well, where it was like, this thing is being frenzied. How do we deal with it? We have to use this specific thing. And I don't know what the boss battles are going to be like well beyond that, but it was just like something different for Pokemon in a way that like everything that it's doing, I think it highlights the good parts of Pokemon, which is the joy of discovery, the exploration, the like, and just kind of the wonder of these creatures. I feel like it's doing it in a way that all makes sense. But there's even there's changes to the regular battle system as well. Like that's different than what it normally is. So not only do your Pokemon have moves as they usually do, but you can make it so Pokemon master certain moves. And then you can perform that move in either a strong style where it will do more damage, but the consequences of that is like your opponent will get to act more times afterward. Or you can do agile style, which will make it so you can do more turns, but you do less damage. And so it takes moves that like might otherwise not be as worthwhile and kind of gives them a little bit more utility and has you paying very close attention to the turn order in a cool way.
Yeah, there's a good amount of tactical revisions to this that I think add a little bit of depth that was kind of missing from the main story progression of the mainline games because they were so straightforward. Like you basically could like brute force your way and like you weren't really thinking about like matchups or anything like that. And while that's not the biggest concern, that I do feel like there's the strong and agile stuff do fully utilize some of your skill sets a little bit better. For me, like how it came across, like, yes, that's very true. Like you use the strong attack, like you lose speed. And so your other opponent may be able to go more. But like if you know this is super effective, but you've used it a few times before and like it doesn't quite take them out of health, but like it's like a slither or a little bit like, well, just strong style that. I'm going to one-shot you now. I don't have to worry about that. If you get a bad matchup with someone and you're not sure, and you like say you've mastered a Pokemon with a teleport or a poison ability. You can use the poison ability and like ensure that they get hit with that and like do it twice and like get it in there. So like you can move faster and like maybe apply that and then get out of there before they can take their action against you. So it opens up a little bit more for that. I think that was like kind of underutilized. And it's a really nice system. And then how it weaves it into these kind of like boss battles is great, as Ben was saying, because you have the real-time action part where you're trying to create these openings by dodging. And you can just do a dance and run around them the whole time and toss these bombs at them to calm them if you really want to do it that way. Or you can make them do something where like they ram against a tree or something and now they're kind of confused. You summon your Pokemon at that time, they're more vulnerable. Then you take out their HP, they stay down for a longer time, and you can start chucking those bombs like really fast and take off a huge chunk. But I mean, it's whatever you feel comfortable with. So they're giving you a few different ways to approach it. And it, as you said, Ben, it carries into just how you even catch and engage traditional Pokemon, whether you want to sneak up on them, get behind them, whether you want to even like just like catch them or fight them, period. And as you said, the Pokédex, like you don't have to complete every single task to rank up. You're given a bunch of options and you just want to get to max like research level on each individual entry. And how you go about doing that, there's like 6 different categories. So it's giving you a lot of flexibility, which I think is why so many people are having a good time with this game, because it's about just exploring the world, playing Pokemon how you want to play it, and it's not so procedural anymore. I feel like it's not, and just get the sense of awe again. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah. There's a tremendous sense of freedom, but at the same time, despite the openness, despite the feeling of choice, I still feel like there is a strong narrative at the core. There is like a good constant sense of progression. It's not like you don't have to sit there and just like farm materials if you don't want to do that. I feel like it's giving you like tons of choices where it's like, yeah, you can craft all of these things. Like you can go into your menu and you can craft a bunch of Pokeballs if you want, or you could just buy them, And so like, I know that seems like such a simple thing, but what I'm trying to say is like, there's a ton to do. Like there's all these requests that you can fill around town. And some of them you'll definitely want to do, but you don't have to do all of them. I just feel like they're another way for you to engage with the world.
I played like 10 hours of Sword and Shield or whatever, and it seems like you just have way more variety of what you can just do with your character. Like, from what I remember that game, it's just pretty much like, go to that town, beat that gym leader. Now let's go on this really linear path.
Right.
Go to that town, beat that gym leader.
There was a kind of stupid, kind of remarkable moment that I had today when I was playing where there was this this river, and on the other side of this river, there was like this bank where there were items. And I was like, I bet I could get over that. Like, I bet if I use my mount and I speed boost and I jump, because you get like, if you go into the water, you don't instantly get hurt and then reappear on the shore. You can paddle like 3 times.
Yeah.
And so I would go and I would jump and I would get like right to the edge of the bank and I wouldn't quite do it. But I was like, this is such a fun, stupid, very like open world moment where I see something on the other side and I'm trying to figure out a way to get there. Or moments where you're like, can I make it up the slope or whatever? And they're not all that remarkable on their own. And there's certainly things that plenty of other games have done, I realize. But like, if you think about traditional Pokemon, like they're just really boring mazes, I feel like a lot of time, where it's just like,
yeah, they are.
Here's the sections where I have random encounters. Maybe there's like Pokeballs with items that I can pick up, and maybe I'll have to like push some rocks or something. But it's just like, you don't really have to engage with the environment a lot of times in a meaningful way. I understand that like some areas are more intricate than others, but the general point that I'm trying to make is it feels very outdated in a way. And I think just moving around the world here is way more fun and way more exciting. And like just the act of getting from point A to B is a lot more engaging.
Do you think, so I guess this is like a spin-off of Pokemon? Pokemon Legends Arceus?
Yes.
So it'll be Pokemon Legends now. Do you think the mainline series will follow this trend?
The thing is like, because they're doing this, and in my opinion, because they're executing it so well, like, at the very least, I feel like you have to use this as a base.
Right.
It's like Monster Hunter World, right? Rise used that and kind of spun off from that, but a lot of the good things that Rise did came from World, right? And so I really hope, you never know with Pokemon, but I think that there is something here. The thing that sucks is you just wish it was on any other platform. There's no doubt like, and that's the thing. And I don't want to get too hung up on this because like, I think the design of the game creates that sense of awe, as Damiani said, but you just think for like 1 second, you're like, what if this had the power of a contemporary console or like the budget of something like a Witcher or Horizon or whatever, because it is just ugly as sin. Like there's just no way around it. It's like you're riding on your mount and you're just like watching the environment pop in ahead of you and everything is just kind of washed out and blurry.
Yeah, I hate the color palette for this game. I even playing on the OLED screen in handheld mode, like with those like vibrant setting, it still doesn't really pop off the screen very well.
Yeah.
And yeah, it to put it in the most succinct way, 2017's Breath of the Wild technically and visually looks better than this game.
Yeah.
And that's
It just pops more.
Yeah. Maybe they were going for something they couldn't fully realize. I've seen people say like maybe like Japanese watercolor paintings are trying to go for that like aesthetic, but this can't realize it. And the only nice thing I could say is almost no loading times. It's very nice to like instant load. I was like, all right, that's cool at least. But I mean, yeah, when you're trying to like run around in a mount and not only is everything popping up, but like certain geography is like slightly deformed because it isn't fully formed yet. I'm like hills and mountains and I was like, all right, yeah, maybe next round this will look a little bit better. And for me, it's not the worst thing. It's noticeable, but it's not like hampering anything. But I wish you could really benefit from that. The music, though, I'm loving the music. The music I've heard so far is pretty good. For me, it's another case of I really wish open world games would just like I like open world games that use music for themes, both like day-night themes and like circumstantial stuff. Yeah, that more like that. Maybe a little less Breath of the Wild style. Like it was nice once, but not that. But the quality of life update stuff. Like I hope there are updates in the future. But one of the biggest gripes I have, because we're saying you can do so many of these different activities. There's side requests you can get from villagers, and you can set it to the active thing, and it'll track that. But like all the other stuff, when you complete it, there's like no way to tell you've completed something in like the quest log. If you turn something in, it shows it's completed. But when you're ready to turn something in, unless you are keeping track of it in your head, like I was supposed to collect 6 berries, it doesn't like do anything to tell you you're complete.
Like no green check or something.
So it's a little like it's something simple, and I understand they don't want to overwhelm you with a bunch of like green check boxes or anything like that or exclamation marks, but just something on the menu that says you've completed this. You
like
can go
literally
turn it
every
in.
other game does.
Yeah,
I was gonna say every other game does that.
So I don't have to like, go to the NPC and guess, did I finish this or not? I don't know.
It wasn't even something I was really thinking about, but you're totally right. It's such a weird half step because when you get the quest, right then and there, you're like, you can just say, I want to track this, and then you can pretty much see like where you need to go at all times, and so that's very useful. But you can only track one thing at a time. There's no, as Damiani said, there's no reason, like, if you get your 3 things of wheat or whatever, the game can't just be like, hey, this is ready to turn in. And then you need to go there.
It's like an on-screen prompt says you completed it and, like, go turn it in. But, like, it's because it's so interesting because you can kind of Z-target Pokemon and it links it to your Pokedex and it'll show you, like, a research rating and some information in the bottom left corner. But they do that for Pokemon, but, like, they don't...
Quest.
Yeah, they didn't think ahead to, like, think about that with questing.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
That's annoying.
Because I did put like about an hour or so into like let me just do side quests for about an hour and see how this goes. I just want to check this out. And it's usually like catch a Pokemon or go find me something. But turning it in, I was like, wait, who did I even... Okay, you got to set it as the active one. So you got to go in 2 levels. You got to open up like a menu that shows like the world map, then hit your side quest and main scenario. Then go into that, then click it to set as the active one. Then it puts the marker on the NPC. Then you go track him down as usual. But then it doesn't tell you... Yeah, it's one of the it's small stuff that adds up. It's not like the most egregious thing,
Patch it in.
but it's just a few things like that. And like the satchel thing, that guy is such a troll because his last line is like, one more spot could have been the difference between life and death. And I'm out there and I get like a new rare candy and it's like, you can't pick that up because you're full.
Damn.
So it runs into a problem that is, I feel like regularly annoying with these types of games where like I feel like I expanded my bag like a lot. I don't remember how many, but I went through like several iterations of him being like one more slot, and even still I can fill up my satchel like immediately, and it's like that's just never an enjoyable part of these games because it's not like a survival horror where like.
That's part of the game.
It's part of the game where you feel like you're constantly under threat of like not having very much. Whereas here, it's just like, oh, I guess I just picked up too many rocks. I gotta go over. And you, admittedly, you can fast travel over to the thing and put them in the item storage. Yeah, it's just slightly
it just seems
annoying.
like a lot of little things that are just kind of like, why?
Even with that concession, though, like, yeah, I think there are things to complain about, but. I'm finding myself in a kind of hypnotizing flow with this game. Like I do feel like it is structured in a way where it is kind of letting me do what I want when I want to do it. Like maybe I'll go do a side quest here, or maybe I'll just go around and work on this research stack. So like I feel like I do have the leash off me enough where like I'm not constantly finding these things. And I think the side quests, while not necessarily being remarkable in what they have you do. Like, it could be like, bring me 3 of this thing or whatever. I do find that they're all written pretty well. Like, there's a sense of humor to the side quests where, like, these people are not just, like, reward dispensers. They have some personality to them. They have some quirk to them, or there's something going on that makes the side quest a little bit more engaging, but it's also not like droning on forever. It's not like, here, let me tell you my life story, but it's just enough to give the game kind of some spark and some zest. And I think the same thing is true of the main story. I just encountered the Misfortune sisters, and it's just like, these people are delightful to watch. Like, the lines that
one of them
reading.
is named Coin.
Yes, yeah. Coin. It's just really clever and cute in a way, and it almost, it's kind of frustrating because I think the dialogue and the localization is really strong, and there's just no voice acting, and you're just like, and you're just like. You've got it. You've got all the ingredients. Imagine if you had some amazing performances to really bring these characters to life even more.
There's so much potential because a lot of this ties back. I didn't even think about this till you were just talking about all of this. You're basically trying to. This is a new village, and you're seeing it grow and expand and being built over your. Like, you can actually do stuff that helps add new things. Like there's a farm field. And you can plant crops there, and you can expand that field to get more crops based on doing certain side quests. So, like, your reward isn't just like, your reward is seeing more activity within the village. So it's like tied to that, and it's a really cool concept because, as Ben was saying, like, this being said in the past, like, this world, like, people are kind of scared of Pokemon.
Yeah, that's sick.
They describe them as frightening, and like it's so different from every other Pokemon game. Like, the wonderful world of Pokemon, where we've been living happy together forever, and everyone's like, we love Pokemon. It's like, Pokemon are scary and terrifying. Oh my god, don't let them into our village. It's so bad. It's like, whoa.
That's cool.
And I feel like in regular Pokemon, I feel like everybody just kind of bends over backwards for you. But the way that this game starts, you fall out of the sky from the future, and
excuse me.
Yeah, that's the twist.
You go into the village, and they're like, okay, you can stay here tonight, but tomorrow we're gonna make you pass a trial, and if you don't, like, you're not gonna take up space in this village. Like, we're gonna exile you.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and there's just like. And they're like, yeah, like, Pokemon are dangerous. Like, you could die. And there's just this sense of realness to it. Or, like, people don't necessarily trust you because you're an outsider. And
that's cool.
Of course, pretty quickly, you forge relationships and you turn things around. But to add to Damiani's point, I think there's just this groundedness with this world where... Like, it doesn't just feel like Pokemon is going through the motions again. It's really trying to present a different time period where everything is new and everything is different. And, like, I don't know, there's just so many cool little touches. Like, you meet people and they're like, you put them in balls? Like, that doesn't seem humane. Like, you shouldn't do that.
And questioning everything you know.
Yeah, and it's just like thinking about these conversations. And even, like, when you catch a Pokemon... This, like, the ball, like, shoots up and it makes, like, this little firecracker noise. And it's like, yeah, in this time period, I guess to, like, let you know that you caught it, the best that they could probably do is, like, some little firecracker sounds. And it's all these little things that kind of, like, present Pokemon in this new, fascinating light.
That's cool.
Yeah. I feel like I'm putting about roughly maybe a little bit more time than you are. I'm a little bit further than where you are, so I won't say anything specific since you're about to get there. They do add a few things that, like, expand, like, what you can do. Not radically, but, like, there's one thing you're going to get very soon that's like, and it'll have side quests attached to it. And I do think...
Are you talking about the bear?
Yeah.
Okay. I have the bear.
Okay, so the scent, you have a bear that has a scent that can track things.
What? Yes.
So you get quests where you can track down missing people and ride a bear.
Yeah. So I haven't done any of those quests yet, but I
need to take a screenshot of that and send it to Huber.
Yeah, I thought of Huber immediately.
But I'm like, those are the possibilities I'm thinking of. And then, like, the second, I won't say what it is, but, like, the second boss-like encounter is a little much different than the first one.
Okay, I don't think I've done that.
And I liked it. I was like, okay. And I was hearing, like, it gets more difficult from there on out. The thing, I feel like, though, I still feel like it's missing like something, and I can't put it into words because like I feel like I understand the gameplay loop now. As we said, like you got to explore however you want to explore and level up your research rank to get access to new areas where you push forward to find these. I guess they're called lords of each area,
cool.
and you're trying to calm these lords. And then you go back to base. It's like, congratulations, you did a good job. Here's a new area, and you got to like rank up to go to that new area. It's kind of like that cycle, and that works so well. Like and I'm thinking the most analogous is like Monster Hunter, and it like works so well for me because like you could do that solo, you can play with other people. It may be as simple as like there just is no real multiplayer component to this game. You can't battle other people, and people can't join you in this game. I was like, man, if they had like those frenzy battle, like I'm thinking of like Gigantamax battles or whatever, the raids and Sword and Shield. Like I feel like something like that could have benefited, but they do have some kind of asynchronous thing. Other players' satchels when they fall in battle, you could go on the map.
I've seen those on the map,
them.
but I haven't actually gone and grabbed them.
So what you do is you recover it. And it's like, congrats. It's going to send it back to the player. You're going to thank you. You get these merit points. And there's an NPC in town, and you can trade them for special items. And there is a trading system, but I feel like the secret ingredient might be, if they revisit this, might be a multiplayer component to this game. I think like that would elevate this even further for me because
going on the field with your friends.
Yeah, like I feel like that would make it so much more special for some reason because Pokemon is a lot about playing with other people, whether it's trading or battling, and not really having all that element there is a little. Yeah, I think that's going to be one of the things long term. People are like, I hope if you make a sequel, add that back in if you can.
I want to talk a little bit about the difficulty. And so far in my experience, while I wouldn't say Pokemon Legends is a difficult game, that's not the way I would brand it. It at least I feel like pushes back way more than I am used to in the early game for a Pokemon game, or at least with like more contemporary titles, because like the things that I'm fighting, I feel like are right around my level. And I'm like going around, I'm battling a fair amount, I'm catching a fair amount. I feel like I'm getting a lot of experience, and I feel like what I'm fighting is right there. And like, I'm not just running into these instances where my Pokemon is just this impenetrable tank and can chew through like entire teams. Like I feel like my Pokemon are regularly fainting. And then on top of that, if your Pokemon is fainted when the battle is over, they don't get experience. And so it's like, okay, that guy fainted, but I really want to get him XP. I'm going to use up an action to use a revive to make. And so it's just like, it doesn't seem like that much, but in comparison to some of like the mind numbingness that Pokemon can be, it feels like an oasis. It's like, okay, like you're making me care enough to be invested into what I'm doing.
That sounds like basic turn-based battle stuff.
Yes.
But in Pokemon, hey, that's new,
right.
I guess.
In a way, it sort of feels like it's meeting the threshold that it should always meet. But
at the bare minimum.
even though it does, I do think it is benefiting the game. Sure. Like I'm not like when I get to a story moment, I'm not like, oh, this is going to be a breeze.
Yeah. It can get a little chaotic at times. There's these things called time-space distortions that appear in the field.
I've been told about them. I haven't done it yet.
I literally just did my first one.
Nice.
And because it prompts you on screen. It literally on text says some disturbance was detected. It looks like a giant like vortex or like a giant like semicircle that you go into. And it's like all stormy and stuff inside. And I went in my first one. They warn you it has really strong Pokemon. Like 6 Pokemon just appeared out of nowhere.
Oh, shit.
Like, and they like teleport around erratically. And I'm being chased by multiple like high-level Pokemon.
That's awesome.
But they're supposedly really rare items in there. And I threw down like a Pokeball to try and fight, and like it was a 3v1 fight out of nowhere. I'm like, oh my gosh! And like they were, you're like if they do more of that type of stuff, like you can easily get overwhelmed, and it feels natural. Like I just want to run out of here. I want to be able to run away. And you're right, like. The situations give the illusion that it's pushing back a little bit more. Like, I mean, it is. It actually is more than the mainline games, but in the grand scheme of video game difficulty, it's kind of rudimentary. But it's nice to feel that sense of I'm gonna like have multiple Pokemon probably faint in a battle. Like, and even at level things that like I know my Pokemon has the super effective moves against you, they still do a little decent amount of damage to you. And like the worrying about experience because they're fainted now. you can always fast travel and go back and rest and get your Pokemon healed up right away.
Sure, yeah.
But like fast travel only takes you to the camps. Getting back to those spots, I mean, you can mount up. It's still a little bit of a time investment. And there's the last thing is like the alpha Pokemon, like not knowing sometimes what level they are and like getting in over your head with those.
Just going to bring that up.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
so there are these Pokemon with glowing red eyes. And when you're running, they can just like knock you on your butt, which is just a funny little addition. But like there was this Tangrowth, and I ran up to it, and I was like, oh, I'll just try to take it on. And it was almost twice my level.
Oh my
and it was
God.
just annihilating my starter. And so it's like, oh, I have to run. You know, and again, this is something that other games have done before, but I feel like fits Pokemon really, really, really well, and just having you feel like there's a sense of threat or that something could come and kind of ruin your day.
You know what? I would maybe consider buying this now.
Yeah, I am shocked. Like even something as simple as so it's like, okay, Ghastly only appear at night, and then you go up to them and you try to catch them, and it's like, oh, like they disappear for a little bit and then appear somewhere else, and like it's not that big of a deal. Like you just turn and you'd be like, okay, there you are, and you throw it. But it's like, yeah, that's something that Ghastly would do, and it's just it's all these tiny little things that kind of add up. But it's a game that like when I sit down to play it, I feel like I could just go and go.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's really
wow.
nice.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, because Damiani, you mentioned like the game needing a little bit more, and I wonder if I'm sort of at or near that tipping point where the repetition will start to set in. I wonder if it's going to get to a point where it's like, okay, they have a good idea here, but there's just not enough to justify the length of the game.
Yeah, it's way too soon. Like in the first area, I found a spot you absolutely cannot get to until you get probably something else. It seems pretty obvious what you're going to get. And I'm like, oh, well, that seems like it's going to open up a lot of possibilities and just from an exploration standpoint, as well as potentially maybe a new gameplay thing. And I'm like, we'll have to see. So yeah, 6 to 7 hours when hearing like it's taking people 30 plus bare minimum to get through it. Like that's still not even a third of the way through. So a little early to judge that.
Yeah, for sure. It's so promising though. I like I just reiterating, it's like imagine if this was like a PC or a PS5 or a Series X game. Like imagine just imagine. But yeah, I can't believe it. It really feels like a game in a lot of ways that is taking a lot of my core criticisms with the series and addressing them like head on.
Nice.
And it's just so nice. It's the kind of game where I think if you are like maybe sick of Pokemon or haven't been a Pokemon fan for a long time, I think it can kind of drum up some of those old feelings in a compelling way.
2 questions.
Yeah.
Is Blastoise in it?
I've not seen Blastoise, Wartortle, or Squirtle.
Okay. Makes me nervous.
Yeah.
Question 2.
Yeah.
Can you ride Snorlax as a mount?
I saw a alpha Snorlax in the distance. I did not fight him.
Oh shit!
I do not know if you can ride Snorlax. I don't know all the. That's the thing. It's like I really have not been following like pre-release coverage or leaks at all, and it's like even better because it's like I have no idea what the hell is going to happen.
Okay.
Which is pretty awesome. But Brad, the Legacy of Thieves collection.
Yeah.
Just came out on PS5, and you've been revisiting Uncharted 4.
Yeah, man.
A game I have not played since around the time that it came out.
Same. Yeah, man. I booted this up last night, and I was like, oh, yeah, I'll play some Uncharted. Like, I really liked Uncharted 4. I remember it was a great time. Dude, Uncharted 4 is so much fun. Really? I'm having a blast going through this game, dude.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're that alone, like, really makes me want to give it another look, because when I played Uncharted 4, like, I liked it, but it was one that I felt like was like a little long in the tooth. Like I remember feeling a little worn out by the end.
Sure.
Maybe it was just how I was feeling at the time, but
yeah, it definitely takes its time. But dude, just revisiting this game and it looks better than ever.
Nice.
Like honestly, going from 30 frames to like 60, or you can even do 120, I believe, if you
on PS5.
Yeah, if you have the monitor supported or whatever. But it's like, world difference. Like, it looks better, man. It's just been such a blast revisiting this game. I'm like, man, I miss Uncharted.
Man, when it came out, it was a looker.
Dude,
so.
It looks so good.
Nice.
And the writing is so excellent. Like, Uncharted's always had great writing, but it's like, I love these characters. I love all of this going on right now. I'm so into this. It feels like watching a summer blockbuster in the best way.
Yeah.
Where it's like just a spectacle of joy and happiness is Uncharted 4 for me right now.
Yeah, the way that it handled Nathan's relationship with the people close in his life, I thought was really impressive. The thing about Uncharted is I feel like, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but I feel like it's really easy to be like, oh yeah, like, you know, it has those awesome set piece moments. Obviously, it has the Jeep moment.
Yeah.
But I feel like you kind of know what you're getting into. Is there anything like about the combat or the exploration or the puzzles or anything where you're like, wow, this is like even better than I remember it being?
One thing I was thinking of is how much, like, you don't shoot a gun for a while in this game. How much it like takes its time building up to these moments, like setting up the plan. Like, really early on in the game, you like go to steal this artifact from like an auction of criminals essentially. And it's like just like the slow task of Drake.
Is this when you're in the suit?
Yes.
Okay.
Like
I didn't know if that was 3 or 4.
Yeah, like just infiltrating this place and them going through the plan and like going step by step through things like that. I'm just like, because like when I think Uncharted back in the like in a general sense, I just think of Drake shooting and shit exploding everywhere. Like,
for sure.
Yes, that's in the game. There's stuff like that, but it's like not as much as I remembered at some of the parts from like, we're really easing into this adventure here.
Right. It's not just that there is constant explosions. It's
it's not.
It's
not 10 all the time, but everything you're doing is still super interesting. Even just like the moments between characters, like just a moment early on in the game, you're diving in the water and you're just looking for some like junk to help out for like your day job. And it's just still entertaining because of the writing. Yeah. And obviously the game looks gorgeous. It's Naughty Dog.
Right.
It's top of the line. So yeah, shooting's good, better than I remember. It feels good. Like some of the DualSense feels pretty nice, like the triggers and stuff like that.
Nice.
Nothing like crazy, but like nice little things from when I pull back the trigger, it feels a little harder, you know, like pulling a gun or something like that.
Sure.
And the melee combat's okay. Like it looks like super cinematic. I mean, it's just like, you know, square, circle, dodge, triangle to counter. Pretty simple stuff, but it's like I was fighting in a brawl early on and Nate's brother's there. And it's like I attack a guy at the same time with him and they like, both picked him up and like threw him. I'm like, dude, this is some rad dual tech shit. Like, I love this kind of thing.
Does the linearness of it at all feel dated in comparison to more contemporary games?
Well, I haven't gotten to the parts where there's like bigger open parts like later on with the Jeep, like you can actually like drive around. I haven't gotten to there yet, but I think it's been nice, like feeling linear right now. Where I'm like, I feel really focused and not like I'm just aimlessly wandering around. It feels good. Like they strike this really nice balance of exploration and keeping you on track where you feel like you're exploring still, but like you're going on this path for now where I'm at in the game. I'm still I'm like only like 3 hours in right now. But...
Nice. Do you feel like jumping back into Uncharted 4, because like I almost wish this collection
had all the original 3?
Had like all of
me
them.
too.
Like
I wish it had everything.
Thing rather than just the two most recent ones.
I do too.
Do you feel like jumping back into Uncharted 4 has been like easy to like reassociate yourself with these characters? Are you like, do you ever have that moment where you're like, oh, I wish I had gone back to 1 or 2 or 3?
I mean, I thought about going back to them, but it's just like, I honestly love Uncharted 4. I think the most out of all of them. So it's just been like so sweet coming back to these characters.
I'm blanking on the one that came out after this. And
Lost Legacy.
Yeah, Lost Legacy. I feel bad that I'm blanking on it because I loved Lost Legacy. And I feel like it really did strike this great balance between having those moments where you could just kind of drive around and explore.
Yeah.
And as well as the more linear sections. And it was interesting having a non-Nathan-focused perspective.
Yeah, like Lost Legacy is like a much more open space. You're in this big space and you can't just go around, but like Uncharted is like, this is like the globe trotting, you know? Yeah. We're going exotic place to exotic place, exploring all these areas.
It sounds like you revisiting Uncharted 4 briefly has been kind of like me when I revisited God of War briefly.
Sure, yeah.
Where like it's almost like a cliche, I feel like, for video game commentators to bring this up, but pacing is so important.
It's
and
so
you
important.
realize like not many people nail it half as well as they could. But in God of War, it was just like this is perfect.
Wonderful,
Like everything is ebbing and flowing just right. And it sounds like Uncharted 4 is the same
it does.
thing. Where
It's
like
really been doing it for me.
you got into it, like you're not sitting here. Like it sounds like you've only played 3 hours, but so much has happened in the 3 hours.
So much stuff. Where I'm just like
really valuable.
I'm like glued to it.
Nice.
I'm like I have all these games to play. And I'm like I'm thinking about Uncharted still in the back of my head.
Yeah, isn't that the worst? I feel that way about God of War. Like I really want to play God of War. And you feel guilty because you're like, this is a game that I've already played through, and I have a bunch of stuff that is brand new that I could be playing.
Yeah.
It's not a real problem.
Just damn good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Damiani and Brad, this is both of you. And I saw some of this on Stream Team, but nobody saves the world from Drinkbox.
I just beat this today.
Oh, nice. A game that I kind of feel like has flown under the radar.
Yeah.
Which is a little surprising from
Drinkbox,
the Guacamelee team, but I guess Severed kind
was
of
pretty because it was a Vita game originally,
right.
so
right. But I feel like people in our community have been positive about this game. You've been positive about this game, and by people in our community, I think of one person in particular. But you were really positive on it. I mean, you played all the way through it. And then Damiani, you seemed like you had a good time on the Stream Team. So what is Nobody Saves the World?
Nobody Saves the World is like a weird mix of several different things. Like an overworld where you have like Zelda, almost not as in depth where you're like solving puzzles in the overworld, but like a world map you explore through in like chunks. A job system from like Final Fantasy games like 3 and 5 where you have these specific jobs you level up with new abilities, and a like Diablo-esque dungeons you go through where you just go through and clear mobs that are kind of randomly generated. Okay. It's like a mix of all that stuff with drink boxes, art, and humor.
So with the dungeons, are they just optional dungeons? Or
no, well, there is optional, but there's main ones you have to do.
Okay. But like when you say the like job system, you immediately think of like turn-based classic JRPGs, but this isn't that. This is like
real time.
Because you were talking about job system before we played the game, and then I was like, wait, I didn't realize that you were like a mouse that's gnawing on people.
Yeah, it's like a bizarre twist on a job system. Like we would think, job system white mage or like a dragoon, but it's like, nah, man, you turn into a rat, then you're like a turtle, but then you turn into an archer. It's like these really weird things you turn into, but they function like job systems where they each have their own unique abilities, and you kind of like level them up and get new ones for them.
And with Drinkbox, you kind of like associate quirkiness, and I just loved when you could be the horse, and the horse just like moves backward because it kicks with its back legs as its attack.
Games
that was
full
really
of stuff
good.
like that,
yeah. And you can switch between the jobs on the fly, right?
Yeah, it was that, and the most impressive thing was when Brad Brad explained it to me, was understanding how in-depth this skill system can go is when you can start mixing and matching abilities between different jobs and like placing them kind of like in a loadout essentially, so that this dungeon, like, because it's like there's 4, not the best way to describe it, like they're kind of like elemental types. Yeah. They're not literally fire, wind, earth, water, whatever, but like
they function the same.
They function the same way. So you say your character only does like sword of type attack, so like it's like a blunt attack, so that will beat any blunt enemies. But these other ones need like the rat ability.
Yeah, like
is.
Someone has like dark element on them, and you can't hit them unless you break that ability. So you have to use a dark ability on them to make them vulnerable. Yeah,
so it's like you get comfortable with a certain job. Like, man, I really like this job, but then this kind of pushes you outside of your comfort zone. It's like you really need to like, and then like how to progress through certain parts. It's like, well, you need to unlock the horse because you need to talk to the horse and horse talk. So unlock this path, and the rat gets small, and you go here, but like. Then this one, it's like this dungeon has these types of enemies. Man, if you've really been favoring like the archer, man, you're not going to do so well in here if you didn't build up your other abilities. And everything, the more Zelda-esque about it, it's not necessarily like the structure, even like the overworld. It's the nature of like you have the option to tackle your objectives in any order you want. Like one part is you're trying to get to this like main castle, this king's castle in the early game, but there's these side dungeons you got to get, and like you get this currency, these stars, and if you get enough stars, you can unlock the path forward and go get stars however you want, because each job has its own like quest that you can fulfill, and you earn stars for that. The only thing I'll say, Brad had to keep telling me to redeem my quest because it doesn't automatically do it for you. You got to manually go in and click it and claim it. And I was like, okay, why did you just do that?
You do that a lot.
That was my only small gripe, but like other than that, yeah, it was like, this is really cool because a lot of them are repeatable. So like just naturally playing, you'll unlock more of those, and others are just, and each job has like a letter grade system as well. So like it's not just.
It's like levels, essentially.
So one will unlock the paths above you, the options above you, but at the same time it'll unlock new skills and the ability to upgrade existing skills. Like you can only upgrade so far before you need to rank up again. So it really causes really makes you mix and match.
Constantly incentivized to level up or to do your job quests for each thing you get, because not only do you get new abilities for your job and unlock new ones, but it also gives you your main XP, which is like that carries over throughout every job. So you're going to want to constantly be doing all of these things to level up yourself, I guess, as well, which is super important.
And this is all thanks to you, because the title, you literally start as a nobody. It's like defenseless, and like you go from there.
You have like the limp.
Punch, yeah. I was like, oh, that's great. But like the story, like you get this wand from this jerk named Randy, and like he's like, you really hate this dude, and he's just like, but no, I'm like the assistant to like the best mage in the world, Nostramagus or whatever, and like you're trying to track them down, but this Randy guy at every turn is great, because when you talk to NPCs, they ask you about him, like you be honest, like this guy sucks, like he sucks, doesn't he? And I'm like, thank you, don't be like the good guy, be like be nice. You be nice, they kind of like don't trust you as much. I'm like, that's good. I like that.
A couple of questions. You mentioned, keeping you on your toes or forcing you out of your comfort zone. Like, I could see that being annoying in the sense that, like, maybe you have like a big cluster of enemies, and it's like, okay, they're all weak to different things, and so it's like hard pinpointing what you want to attack with what.
What they do in those scenarios is like if you're in a big, they usually don't put in more than 2 weaknesses at a time in a group.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you can always like kind of manage it. So you're never like constantly switching. Like you're not going to get all 4 usually at a time.
Yeah. And the moves kind of, all the abilities kind of have a rhythm to them. Like they're like the more you use them, the more you understand. Because like each one only has like I think 3 at most, and a lot of them are just like, here's like, you either have like a melee, a range, like the big knight has like a stomp ability. It's just like a pushback. And like you're like, okay, I know I'm gonna use this situation. Do you want that? Or like the horse ability is like, dude, this is like does a lot of damage, but you gotta be facing backwards. Right. And that's one of the things about the controls. The controls are really good in this game. It's a tiny bit of a learning curve, but once you get over that small hump, like everything just clicks. Like because it's directional inputs for your it's 4 directionals, right? Yeah, north cardinals. And you can either manually aim, or you can hold down like a trigger button and lock yourself in that direction to make it easier. So it's not quite like a twin stick shooter, but it has a little bit of that vibe at times where it's going for that, like a little bit bullet helly almost, but not quite. Gotcha. And that's where it gets a little bit more chaos and where you need to like get comfortable. Like that's where it's pushing out of your comfort zone, because maybe you're that ranger and you're used to like hitting a bunch of enemies from far away, but now these guys are way faster. You are not going to be able to do your shots. Switch over to the knight so you can knock them back a little bit and then get in there, because you're slow moving with that, but then you whack them with your sword, and your sword's so strong it keeps them at bay. That might be a better solution for you, whereas other parts you're going through like narrow passages and all these arrows are flying around you to try and like knock you off, and it's like, well, if I hang back here and take out the enemies from afar, it'll be easier. Then I can focus on actually traversal at this point. It's not always that straightforward, but like it kind of like works you into it, eases you into it a little bit like that.
The additional abilities that you can get for a job, like, can a job start where it like doesn't do any specific type of damage, but then it's like, oh, this does this type of damage with this new ability?
So usually the job has an associated like attack type with it, like dark or something like that.
I see.
Usually so the job has that whole thing, but you take other abilities from other jobs that are the opposite or something like that.
And you also have passive stuff too, right?
Yeah,
you can
every
mix
job
and
has like
match that.
every job has a unique passive also. You can level up and
because
mix
the
and match.
poison or whatever that was the big one to add. It
Yeah.
was so nice to have a dot ability.
Yeah.
I imagine that like as you kind of balloon in available jobs, does it ever get to be a problem? Like switching, like, or do you feel like you're always able to quickly get exactly what you want when you need to get it?
Yeah, you have like a quick swap, like almost like a weapon wheel of your jobs. You can just swap to on the fly real easily.
Does it do like the slowdown thing?
No,
okay.
it doesn't.
It's you got to do it all in real time. But you can also self-filter by like deactivating some of them right from the wheel. So like, if you don't want to have too many on there,
that's
I believe I might be wrong.
I think so, but yes.
But even then, it's like. It's not that hard to do. Again, it's one part that they do it early enough that like they get used to, like you have like 3 available. It's like learn to switch between these 3 because this is going to be an essential thing.
Gotcha.
And it's like there are definitely the moments of downtime where you could see you always can kind of see ahead a little bit, so you can kind of prepare. Like if you're walking, as far as I know, like when you've played way more, I don't know how many situations where like it forces you in and like. You got to react on the fly now. Like yeah.
Well, the thing about that is like a lot of these dungeons you go into, they show you what type of attacks you're going to need to break in the dungeon before you go in. So you can be like, oh, I'm going to prepare this build to help me get through this specifically, where you're not so much caught off guard all the time.
Okay.
And the dungeon's all randomized, right? In layouts.
Yeah, the layout is randomized. Yeah.
So you have like all of these specific quests for each job. Does it ever kind of like accelerate to a point where it's like, okay, doing this task is not fun? It's just kind of annoying. Like, do they get so demanding or
They're
like
never
specialized?
Like super demanding. Some of them you have to like kind of think about. I like some of them later, like the later on ones. Sometimes you have to think about more and like really dive into your knowledge of your abilities. Like, how am I gonna get this kind of thing? Like one of them is summon like 20 familiars with some guy. I'm like, how the hell am I going to do that? I don't even have the mana to do that. But then one of the other classes had this ability where if you run out of mana, it would start taking your health away, but allow you to cast stuff. So I was like, oh, well, if I put that on, then I can do that. Stuff like that later on.
That's cool.
And there's stuff like that for like side quests in the world too, where you're really test of your knowledge.
But the side quests don't give you stars, do they?
I think they do, yes.
Okay.
And they're just like, because the side quests are part of your quests. I'm like, you unlock quests for like the knights or the mages or stuff like that. And you do those, and it gives you XP through that too.
Okay.
Like pretty much everything gives you stars when you go through them.
And Brad, you said you played through all of it, but roughly how long is it?
Well, I leveled like everything up to the max.
Gotcha.
And I spent like 25 hours, I think.
Oh, everything up to the max in only 25 hours. That sounds pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I'm interested in this.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's PC and Xbox only right now, but it's on Game Pass. So.
Oh, it's on Game Pass.
Yeah, it's a great. Yeah, it's really good.
Is it on PC Game Pass?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Probably, but it's really good. Yeah.
Because trying to save money and like.
Yeah, if you got it already.
You just like put it. Yeah. Oh my God, that's so nice.
Yeah. It's really great, Graham. I hope more people get a chance to play it.
I feel like Game Pass is just like that little something extra.
Once in a while, there's like a really sick Game Pass game where you're like, oh, nice.
This sounds perfect.
It's for me, it's like always like little weird indie games. I'm like, oh, nice. This is on here?
Yeah.
Like that D-Lit and Wonder Labyrinth game.
Yeah.
The Record of Lotus War game was there.
That's on Game Pass?
It was on there.
It's not
That's
anymore.
where I played it. I was like, oh, sick.
Yeah, I think I looked up the price for that after you guys were talking about it, and I was like, $25, I don't know.
Yeah.
The reason I say this is I just have no time. I'm
already,
of
course.
But we're gonna have to make time for the SIZZLE right now, and the day we're recording this, Sony bought Bungie. Like, how is that not at the forefront
That's a sizzle.
of our mind? We're not talking about that specifically. Just in your opinion, what will the next major video game studio acquisition be? If you had to throw one out there.
I don't know. Me and Damiani were talking about this earlier today, and it's like Damiani like convinced me, man. It's gonna be like Capcom or Square Enix.
Yeah, I because they don't have as much attachment. Like I feel like a Japanese acquisition would be a big deal for Microsoft, Sony, because there's been unfairly or not, they moved away from Japan studio. Team Asoba kind of like stepped in a little bit, but like they've been more of like they've been globalizing, so they don't need to really rely so much on that. But like getting a huge Japanese studio like a Capcom or Square Enix would be like a big boon to them, and especially the Microsoft, which has been trying to expand its presence into and increasingly into markets, especially trying to do well just in Japan and in other parts of Asia. It would be a big get for them. Whereas like Sega, everyone's like, oh, Sega would be easy buy, but they're part of Sega Sammy. That's a big conglomerate. Same with Bandai Namco. They're part of a huge conglomerate. Konami also is a little bit of like a difficult wheelhouse. It usually comes down to Square Enix, Capcom, Koei Tecmo gets tossed out a little bit because it might be a little bit easier. But Capcom, I think, would be a huge boon because of those franchises.
Oh, absolutely.
Because Monster Hunter would just be like gargantuan for either of them to get. Microsoft would love to put that something on like Game Pass as well and have like that just a big flagship for them.
Capcom is one of those things where it's like any one of your tentpole franchises would be gigantic. The fact that it would be all of them is huge, staggering.
But then on the other side, Sony seems to be pretty invested with the fighting game part of Capcom with Capcom Cup. So maybe they already have a foot in the door there with that, and they're looking to maybe bring the whole thing over.
But it's like they already have a foot in the door with Square too. All these exclusive RPGs on PlayStation only.
Can you imagine one console exclusively having Final Fantasy? Oh, that would be wild.
It would be wild.
We're going to get into this in the Hotake, but it is relevant to this discussion where Sony is like, yeah, more stuff is coming.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Buckle up.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We'll see. I think, you know what, Damiani? I did not have an answer to this question, but I do think Capcom, the way that you're presenting it, makes a lot of sense.
I know. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, even more so than Square Enix to me for some reason. I think Capcom makes a lot of sense.
Capcom maybe is of all of them. Capcom seems like the most straightforward purchase with the least amount of like hurdles to overcome. Because even Square Enix has some other ties. We were talking about a little bit, but like into other media things. They're part of some other committee, so there might be some more, navigation, like legal navigation has to be done there. Whereas I think Capcom is pretty just their game company.
Yeah.
Like they come as a full package and no strings attached.
Dragon's Dogma 2.
There you go. That's why you want this to happen. Because you'll get Dragon's. This will be how Dragon's Dogma 2
I think you'll get Dragon's Dogma 2.
Oh yeah, it's coming.
Regardless, but
are you sure?
Those GeForce,
those
NVIDIA leaks were real. Well, what else is he doing? Devil May Cry again?
Because Sony gets it, like they're so good with,
I think
Marvel. You get your Marvel vs. Capcom.
Oh please!
Imagine if the new Marvel vs. Capcom somehow looks worse than Infinite.
Shit!
Like it would almost be worth it for the sheer hilarious
Switch
hilarity
only.
of it. Yeah.
But it has every character everyone ever wanted. It just looks bad.
It's got like 8 different Wolverines.
It's Pokemon Legends.
It's Pokemon Legends.
It's what you wanted, but
Marvel vs. Capcom Legends. Arceus. Oh my god! But I was just thinking, Damiani, what was making me laugh is like people were so salty that Street Fighter was only Sony and PC. Like, imagine if that were to happen again.
Yeah.
But Sony seems. I don't know how much we want to talk about this, but like I feel like Sony might be more open to allowing some of it to be much more multiplayer.
We will get into this with the Bungie
sure,
stuff.
I'll hold that off.
Yep.
Then.
Yep. No, that's a big point of the discussion. Fun. Yeah, Damian, I think you make a strong case. This SIZZLE is brought to you by some wonderful shout out to your patrons. If you want to find out more and be shout out on all of our various podcasts, go to patreon.com/easyallies. For this one, in honor of the Destiny buy, I thought, give me your best Destiny voice when you do the shout out after I read the names, whatever you interpret that to be.
Okay.
I think of Lord Shaxx.
I don't know who any of the characters are. I know
he's
Kate
the guy
Six,
that he's like the PvP guy that's like, good job, Guardian.
Oh yeah,
you know that guy. That was a bad Lord Shaxx, but you get the idea. All right, shout out to Elthanas, Greg TheDarkKnight Kettering, Caleb Togi Crawford, and Nick. Shout out! I like that. It's like an enemy from the darkness.
Yep.
Damiani. That was good. Brad, last week you were like, I'm going to bring this game to Frame Trap And I was like, I don't know what that is. And I like Googled it real quickly. And I'm pretty sure I saw a 4 out of 10 review for it.
You sure did.
And I was like, oh my, okay.
You sure did.
Pray for the Gods.
Yes.
What the hell is this?
Pray for the Gods is a Shadow of the Colossus, like insanely heavily inspired by Shadow of the Colossus, mixed with a survival game. And I will say, as someone who spent 6 hours or so with it, it's not 4 out of 10. At least the version I'm playing, it's not.
Oh, okay.
It's better than that.
Okay.
Okay, I was gonna say is it lower?
No.
When you say better, do you mean like 7 out of 10?
Yeah,
Okay.
closer to that.
Okay.
Like, I mean, my expectations weren't super high, but it's decent. It's fun. It's got some problems, but I'm having a good time going through it.
When you say Shadow of the Colossus mixed with survival, like instinctively I go, I don't know that I want that. Like I would worry that they would like
to me,
overcomplicate the appeal of Shadow of the Colossus.
Kind of, yes. To me, it's something they kind of added to make it stand out, I guess, different. Like there's survival elements and they're fine. They're pretty basic, I guess. You know, the whole game takes place in like a frozen wasteland essentially. So the world is like pretty much very empty for like Shadow of the Colossus. There's actual like guys you can kind of fight though.
Okay.
Like you have a sword, but you don't stab Colossus with it or anything like that.
Okay.
You like fight some undead dudes, or like there are some weird wraiths. That's about it. The combat's like pretty clunky, pretty PS2, like the whole thing, but it's fine. You know, you get through it. But you're in this cold weather and there's like storms that occasionally come. You need to stay warm, so you could find new gear in these like these shrine-esque areas, Damiani. I went into these as like, oh, are these trying to be shrines? They're like very nowhere close near the level of a shrine or anything like that, though. But they're just like little puzzles. They're fine.
Okay.
And you get a new piece of gear to maybe like give you some more cold resist, and you upgrade these pieces of gear you find by like killing some animals, getting their pelts, or chopping down trees and getting wood and stuff like that. And you upgrade these, so eventually you can go to further out into the world where it's like colder and stuff like that. So it has that typical, I think of like Subnautica, where you like build to slowly get to this area, and it's like that in this game, but it's very minimal. It's very like very small, you know?
Okay.
And depending on the difficulty you play on, these are more impactful.
I see.
So I'm playing on hard, which is the second hardest difficulty. So like if I get too cold, my character will start to die. And if I eat food, I'm like full, my stamina will regen faster, and same with like sleeping and resting. Like all that helps my stamina get up.
Gotcha.
But if you play on easier, like none of that really matters. You can just
Can you change on the fly?
I don't know actually if you can. I haven't tried that.
So I assume that there are like colossi.
There are colossi in the world, yes. Okay. But you don't have a mount or anything like that. You don't have like sweet aggros.
Yeah.
You have like a glider, you know? Your Zelda paraglider, you got that kind of thing. But
does everything have durability?
Your weapons do, not your armor. Like your weapons, there's like torches, like bows and stuff like that, and they break over time. But I've found a bunch where I'm like not really worried about them. You can repair them if you find stuff like that, but I'm never like, I always find something to just use, especially because you don't have to use them on bosses really. There's mini bosses I found out in the world. There's some like freako like wizard guy killed me because like I would kill him in the fight, but he has like this cold aura and I couldn't withstand all the cold.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, oh, I need to upgrade a little more to fight this guy.
Cool.
But yeah.
When you actually get to the big things that you're taking
Colossi,
down, like are those, is that pretty momentous? Like are the mechanics cool?
They're okay. Like I obviously compared to Shadow of the Colossus, which is like the best, and it's not like the first one you encounter, Domini, is straight up like so much the first Colossi I thought of from Shadow of the Colossus, like so much.
Do they have as much like kind of puzzle solving involved for how to take them
down? There's like puzzles. I don't think they're as good, but there's like puzzle elements. Like one of the early ones is like a bowl kind of one, and I had to like lure him into a wall to like run into it and him to fall over me, get on him and stuff like that. Or there's like one that's kind of like flying around. You have to like raise vents that blow air up for you to fly up to it, stuff like that. There's like involved, and it's really fun. Like it has a nice sense of scale, which you would want. Like one of them I saw like flying over really far away, and I was like, oh, that's really sick. But they're not as good as Shadow of the Colossus, but it's still fun.
So you can see them from afar then, because like Shadow of the Colossus was very guarded about where you could see them from. It was all about that reveal.
Like a few.
Okay.
There's like one or two you could see, but that's about it. Most of them are like, some of them are like in a cave or something like that. So yeah. And there's like a shrine kind of thing. It's so Shadow of the Colossus, dude. There's like a made up language and everything.
Is there a maiden?
No, there's no maiden. There's no maiden. There's like a weird wolf thing.
Okay.
But it's so funny. You like go out in the world. You have like a map. You have to find like map things to reveal the map to you, which is like cool and also kind of annoying because I didn't know where all them were. Or because like some spots of the map might just be blank. And you're like, all right, well,
cool. Wander around for a bit.
Yeah, you do, but it's like wander around like you better be ready to go out in there and deal with the elements or whatever you find.
Shadow of the Colossus, renowned for many things, but I think one of the things is how it tells its story and how sparse a lot of that story is. Is this more direct in its storytelling?
So the story is like mostly done through notes so far that I found. I haven't beaten the game yet, so maybe there's some huge thing, but like you find like people have come to this land essentially, and like everyone's dead except you. Like you arrive and everyone's already dead.
Gotcha.
Some land of the gods, very Shadow of the Colossus again, kind of thing like that, forbidden land almost, and you just find notes of like people trying to figure out what's going on.
Man, having to piece together a story just from reading notes does not sound
but the story
compelling.
is like so far it's not so much like main plot line right now. It's more like this individual person just doing like what they're dealing with kind of thing right now.
Is the person that you're playing, do they speak? Do they talk?
Made up language.
Oh,
barely though. Like
okay.
Yeah, like you're very solo, isolated throughout this game. You're not talking to anyone really.
Gotcha.
When I think of Shadow of the Colossus, I know the answer is going to be not quite the soundtrack of this game.
Oh, like it's okay. Like it's only when you're at the Colossi. Essentially, when you fight a Colossus, it's only then. Usually, it's just very quiet. The game.
So they go for a lot of like more of environmental.
Yeah, it's
sound
very
design?
quiet. There's like animals running around and stuff like that, but there's no like music playing most of the time.
Is there any kind of platforming like
There's jumping. You have a grappling hook that it works more like a hook shot from like Zelda, where you like shoot on stuff. You can't do it on everything, but a lot of things you can. And there's a lot of jumping and stuff like that. It feels like Shadow of the Colossus when you move, like physics wise, like especially when I jump. When you like jump and get like in your air for a little bit, it really reminded me of Shadow of the Colossus. So
is there an on-screen grip meter or something that?
Yeah, you have a grip meter. You have a grip meter. You can like it wears down, but you can raise it up by finding these like golden like skull things throughout the world. You can either give yourself more stamina or more health. The Breath of the Wild kind of thing like that. So I always do stamina though because
seems important.
You want it in those games.
If I see somebody slap a 4 out of 10 at a glance, I would assume that there's like technical problems.
So I watched that review today because I was curious. I was like, oh, I wonder what this game got. And I saw I was getting these, like it got like a 4. I was like, oh my God. I watched the review. It seemed like they had much more technical issues than I did.
Okay.
Where they were having.
Are you playing on PC?
I'm playing on PS5 right now.
Okay,
but
gotcha.
Maybe it's been patched or something. Like I haven't run into anything that's like broken the game where I felt like was super annoying.
Or anything like noticeable inconsistent frame rate problems, anything like that?
No, not really.
Okay.
So it's been like it's been a good time over. It's $30, so that might be expensive for most people. Yeah. For me, as someone who loves Shadow of the Colossus, is like, oh yeah, I'll definitely try it out.
Yeah, the way that you're describing it, not to go back to this chestnut, but it feels like the perfect Game Pass game where it's like, I don't know that because you're like, yeah, it's cool, it's better than I thought it was going to be, but I don't know if it's like something where it's like I'm ready to drop $30.
I don't know if I could be like, yo, you got to spend $30 an hour on
but
this
if
game.
I could just download it and check it out on Game Pass, it'd be perfect.
Like I would recommend it for maybe Damiani if he was curious because I know you love Shadow of the Colossus, but like I'd be like, yo, it's not Shadow of the Colossus. It's not. But I'm having a good time. I'm going to finish it.
Oh, nice.
So cool. There's that, yeah.
Damiani, you're bringing a game that I think I brought last time, and unfortunately just have not had any space to put any more time into, but I really liked it, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on Death's Door, one that Brad is also way into.
Yeah, I know Brad reviewed it. Huber also was constantly like nudging me to play this game because he was convinced it was a Damiani game.
I can see that.
I understand. I understand why. It's
camera angle.
Camera angle is definitely not to my liking, but I will give it in its defense. It does have those moments where it was hiding a secret and it shifts that camera. So I appreciate when an isometric camera angle does have that mechanic in it. But playing it on a small screen, because I played this on Switch, my Switch OLED, and There early on, there were some.
I didn't even know it was on Switch.
There were some navigation parts across ledges and stuff where
small screen
would fall off,
small
and I'm like,
lows.
I think, but big screen problem's really not that big.
Because it does zoom out.
And
you're very small.
It's not that big of a deal, honestly. And like after I think the second hour, I'm like, I don't even care about it's not even really affecting me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty good game. I really like its structure. It's not terribly difficult. Nope. I think it's a good intermediate game. Like if you feel like you're intimidated by like a Dark Souls type game where you don't want to go headfirst into that level of resistance, this is a nice incremental step up. Like if you're used to like a Zelda game or like you come off like easier like style Nintendo games, adventure action games,
baby games.
This is a little bit more like this is the difficulty where like Zelda probably should be. I mean, Breath of the Wild was a good difficulty, but like traditional Zelda games, it'd be nice if they had this much resistance, especially the boss fights.
I was gonna say, I feel like Breath of the Wild was pretty good in terms of
but that's like a 3D open world.
Sure,
like,
but like 2D
like
ones.
2D Zeldas, it could really benefit from having, especially boss encounters, that push back a little bit more like this, and also the concept of like health isn't just freely available. Like hero modes in Zelda games are probably the way you should go, where it's harder to heal up at times. So you actually fear remedial encounters sometimes. When you walk a little too, the magic of this game is progressing further into the unknown and like pushing your luck before you go and before you get like you killed, but then you realize death is not really that big of a deal in this game. It's called Death's Door. You don't lose your souls, you don't lose any currency, you literally just go back to a checkpoint and you just gotta you get to try again. Everything respawns, but that's so low stakes to me, but I that's why I say it's a good incremental step up in difficulty. If you don't want to feel that frustration, that hair-ripping frustration, I lost everything, what the hell, I'm done with this game. It's like, no, let's get you used to this, and maybe this is a gateway to more difficult games.
Interesting, because I don't think I played enough of it to really get a good sense of the difficulty, but it's something that you've commented on and Huber's commented on. Do you think that maybe if you did lose your souls, that would make for a better, more?
I don't think it'd really add anything.
Because this game it's not so immediate how you cash them in. Like I feel like in Souls at a bonfire, almost every outing you go, you come back, you're cashing, you're getting progress. This even the lowest cost, you have 4 categories you can upgrade, like your speed, your basic attack, your special abilities, and then like
your range.
Your range says how fast you attack. They take a little bit longer to actually upgrade, no matter so it's fewer and far between. So if you lost your souls for that, it would be like, man, I didn't you go so long without ever getting an upgrade. I think people might get a little bit. It would be more detrimental in this type of game. Like upgrade, they'd have to have more steps of the upgrades, and they'd have to be cheaper at each step, so that you feel like each time you reach a new door for a checkpoint, it's like, I get to cash in now. This feels like I earned something. Because every time you get into a checkpoint, I'm like, I didn't feel the need to keep going back. I'm like, I want to do a whole segment of the world, and then I'll go back and see if I have enough. It's more about that. I feel like this game, it's interesting how it handles itself, because the tone of this game, it's doing something very unique with this, kind of like you're a reaper of the afterlife, and your goal is to reap souls, and the mystery is that the soul you're supposed to reap vanished, and now you're uncovering this mystery about the lords. These lords of doors have apparently they keep succeeding each other, and you learn the lore of the world the more you discover each story behind each of the different descendants of the lords, which was really cool, as well as this kind of bittersweet narrative about each of the 3 major regions. Once you get to the crux of the story, it's you need to go to the witch's house, you need to go to this the swamp with this frog guy, then the mountains, and you find out that each of these, it's a story about we're not really evil. We were just doing what we thought was right. Plus, try and tackle immortality. This game is about the cheating death and what the cost is if you try and obtain immortality. That sometimes you just go too far, and if you live too long, sometimes you don't realize people bound by mortality, they put more value on different things. They have different values, and you lose those values, which is kind of what the game's trying to get at in the end, is that's the trade-off. death is trying to tell you that like I wish people would understand the death's not so bad. It's like it's something that needs to happen, and people are so scared of it. So like I like this narrative storytelling.
Yeah,
it is done in a more traditional sense, but you could seek out optional stuff to get a little bit more of the gaps filled in. But man, like the gameplay, how it evolves in this, I think is like the best part about this game.
That was the next thing that I was going to ask is, as somebody who's so familiar with Zelda, I mean, when it came to like the design of the areas and working through them and the puzzles that you had to solve and how combat mechanics evolve, like it seems like you were pretty into that based on your enthusiasm.
I wouldn't say this game has very great puzzles at all. It's not really a puzzle game. Right. It's more about getting through the environmental traversal mixed with like surviving enemy setups, and using those new abilities you get, because you can use one of 5, but really 4 different types of weapons that you can unlock, like a sword. You eventually get like a hammer, and they each have different like unique abilities, like whether they're faster, slower. But on top of that, you have like your kind of like items. Like
is it something that you have access to like on the fly, or do you have to equip? Like I want. The hammer
you can. I believe you just go into the menu to change those out. Any of those out.
Yeah.
But it's just earning them. Like they feel like a reward to get. And none of them are necessary. Like none of them like are required to beat the game. It's just if you want them, that gives you maybe a little bit different of a fighting style if you prefer that. But the real crux of it is the.
I think I got the daggers.
Yeah, the daggers is like because you want speed. You want to get in there, which is good because the point I'm trying to get to here is how the system's kind of like gameplay loop is. By attacking, you have like your normal health, but you have these like white orb that can be spent to use your special abilities, where it's like a grappling hook thing you get at the end. You can shoot it like an arrow, and then you get like an explosive bomb that you could toss. Each one of those costs a set amount of those, and the only way to replenish that is to either hit destructible items in the overworld or in a boss fight be on the offensive. If you just sit back, they're not just going to recharge. You got to get in there and attack, but at the same time, you also going to learn to deal with the enemy patterns. And I think it's very fair. I think it's one of the most fair systems, because on some of these, I was able to clear a boss on my first attempt, but like playing it safe to learn the patterns and then going in. But later ones felt challenging enough where I was losing, but I felt like I was always making progress. So it's really good in doing that. And once you see the patterns and you go in and attack, like it's like, can I get one more attack in? Because then I get this. And then maybe I can stay back, like when they're doing another attack, I stay back range and fire some arrows at it, do some damage from there, then get back in. And each one of those can be powered up too through optional side quests. Like one of the coolest things is the hook shot one, where like you can use it and it does a dash attack through the enemy.
Yeah.
So like if you want to get really good with your maneuverability, you upgrade that one. You just like you gap close on a boss, you go through them. You can use it during an attack for iframe, so you go through their attack, get behind them. It's kind of brilliant how it does it. It's simple, but like how well it's executed is really nice. And it's fun to go from getting annihilated in some of these boss fights, like the one in the mountains. I won't say which one it was, but like that one just like first attempt just wrecked me. I'm like, holy crap, we got a lot going on here. And the timing gets a little bit more precise with the dodging, because you can dodge, but you can't just spam it. You got to be very specific. And it feels like it leads to that, because that's one of the you have to do these in a specific order. It's not like optional. Like I can go anywhere I want. You could try, but you need these items you get
to progress through an area.
Basically the loop is go to a certain area, you go to a dungeon, you beat that dungeon, you beat the first part of that dungeon to go to these avarice chests, which are kind of like a trial, an enemy trial. And once you clear that, you get like your first item ability, like a bomb or an arrow. Then there's a deeper layer of the dungeon that then utilizes that item a little bit. And then you fight a real boss. It's just like take away the puzzle element. There's not like heavy puzzles.
Yeah.
Are these optional? I mean, it sounds like you want to do these optional things if it's giving you something so useful. Is that tied into like a true ending at all?
Oh yeah. Okay. I gotta say this. Like there's a post game where you do something and the world changes in a very shallow, superficial way, but there's a whole bunch of new stuff to figure out and do.
Okay.
And by doing that, you can lead yourself to something that's optional that gives you an additional insight ending, perhaps. Okay. So there's more to strive for after that, which is really nice.
That store's such a cool game.
And there's plenty of secrets. And the game does a good job of secrets. There's hidden paths all over the place that lead to either a lot of bonus souls or the items to upgrade your health or you increase your orb count. Because you start with 4. You can get like 6, I believe. 6 health bars, 6 of that. There are the seeds you can get, which you can place at these pots that will regenerate health after a while. And you can strategically use them at the beginning. But later on, like, you'll want them everywhere. And then, of course, like just like getting a huge bank of souls just like by going off the beaten path and like, where's this going? Oh, whoa, I didn't know you can go over here. And then you end up like 1,000 bonus souls. Like, yeah, I'm going to cash in now and getting that new ability. And the soundtrack, like soundtrack's really great. And some of those, again, just not even like the contents of the mechanics of boss fight. The presentation of some of these boss fights is really good.
The presentation overall, I mean, it just has such a striking style.
Yeah, like your office, your headquarters, I like Beetlejuice, like noir-esque, like afterlife places. The so cool. Yeah.
Awesome. I loved. I feel like the way that I was talking about it when I brought Death's Door, I had like this kind of like bubbliness and enthusiasm, and I feel like you feel the same way. We're like, what a neat little gem of a game. In preparation for Dying Light 2, I played through Dying Light: The Following, which is like the major DLC, major expansion that came out for Dying Light. And it wasn't. It's interesting. It's definitely not what I expected it to be. So really, like, the entire DLC revolves around this buggy, this car that you have. So rather than just running around and parkouring from place to place, you are driving on this buggy. You know, you're driving on roads. You're cutting off into wooded areas and all this stuff. And the buggy is kind of like an extension of all the other mechanics in the game. So like the buggy has all these parts that will take damage and you can repair them and you have to upgrade and it needs fuel, right? And so it's playing into the survival side of it. And I do have to say, particularly I feel like after you get Nitro, just like ramming through like a horde of zombies with a car, it just feels good. It's fun to do. Going off ramps. It's like a classic video game thing that just never gets old.
Dead Rising, where you get the car in the first game.
Oh.
You just run over all those
Oh,
guys.
in the tunnel?
Yeah. So satisfying.
I don't know if I did that or if I saw somebody do that, but I know what you're talking about. Because that's like the tunnel where people would go and grind out the achievement. But yeah, so it all centers around this buggy, I feel like. And it's kind of cool. I like how they structure the roads where like you'll have a road and it's a lot of like winding where it's like very rarely is it just like, okay, my objective is here. I go straight there. It's like you're taking very roundabout paths and then like the roads are like littered with cars or there's like something in your way and you have to go around. And so there's plenty of obstacles to contend with that kind of make it somewhat challenging. Like it's very easy to run into like fire or like acid and take damage. But it kind of got to this point where like the area that you're exploring, you're in this countryside and it's like so big and it doesn't take long for you to get an objective. And it's like, you're like, Jesus, like all the way over there. And it's just like because you don't fast travel. And so you're like, okay, I'm going to go all the way over there. And then I need to go all the way back. And I got really tired of driving back and forth. It got to a point where I learned where I was like, wait, if I quit my game and reload, it might just put me at a place that's closer to my objective.
Oh,
so it was
nice.
It was like,
speed
kind of
strats.
like bootleg fast travel, which was nice. So that came in handy. But I also think like while the car does like a good job, I think of kind of highlighting the survival aspect of Dying Light. And it's interesting, like you're like, I need gas, and you get out and you're searching other cars for gas, and you get attacked by other zombies, and so you put yourself at risk. I think all that stuff is good. Like really, the running and jumping and like climbing all over things is so essential to Dying Light that I just don't think
felt weird without it.
Yeah, the car doesn't really capture it. Just doesn't feel as special. I think it feels like more of a generic open world game as a result. And so it's not something that I feel like is essential to what makes Dying Light
special.
Super unique. The other thing that is interesting is the structure of this game. And I do kind of appreciate it from like a context perspective. So you're looking for a cure. You go to this countryside. There's this weird cult. And apparently they have a cure for the zombie disease because they have this mist. And if you're in the mist with the zombies won't attack you. And so you're like, what's going on here? And the way that you progress through the story is as you do quests and tasks, you'll get basically like rep for this group. Yeah. And then as you go through the levels of it, they're like, okay, we trust you more. We're going to tell you a little bit more. We're going to slowly bring you into our ranks. And I love that because it's like, yeah, of course these guys aren't going to trust an outsider. Of course they're not going to tell them all their secrets. Like you really got to earn it. And so I do appreciate that. And I feel like there's so much to do. There's so many quests. There's so many tasks that like you kind of have free reign to be like, yeah, I feel like doing this thing or that thing. And so you feel like you're kind of really charting your own path through the main story, which is pretty cool. I do like that. And I feel like it doesn't take that long to go up a level. I feel like this DLC, playing it from beginning to end, took me like 10, 11 hours, something like that. So it was like, it felt meaty, but not overly long.
Yeah,
I didn't feel like I was like
good length,
grinding it out too much. So there are these like volatile nests that you can go in. And volatiles are like some of the most dangerous enemies that you can run into. They're extremely fast. And I went into this nest and I only did one of them. And it was very hard. And I was like, holy shit, like there's so many of these things. Like, how am I going to take them out? And it was in this cavern and there were these really tall ledges. And I figured out that like, if you go and you aggro them and then you run back to the entrance, they'll fall down the ledges and kill themselves. And so I wouldn't actually sit there and like waste ammo and health packs. I would do this cheese strat of aggroing them and then bringing it up to the front. And I'm like, this is so open world video gaming in the best and dumbest way. And I had like a blast. It was great. Had a good time. Love when that kind of improvisation can come in. And it was fun. What I don't like, because it's continuing the story of Dying Light 1. And Dying Light 1 kind of, I feel like, ended open-ended. I actually rewatched the ending on YouTube before talking about this. And I was like, okay, the following is going to like wrap things up a little bit more. And it super doesn't. Like it feels so separate from, because you're in a totally different place dealing with a totally different group of people. It doesn't feel connected at all, really, to what you were doing in Haran and Dying Light 1. And I got to the end, and you make a choice at the end. And I made a choice, and the outcome was horrible. And I was like, what? And then I looked up online. I was like, what's the other thing that can happen? And I was like, oh, that's equally horrible. And I went back and did it. And like, I'm a little bit annoyed that it feels so separate and the ending feels extremely abrupt. But I also was like, I kind of respect, like, I'm not going to spoil it, obviously, but there are two things that can happen, and both of them are like awful. Like it's like there is no happy ending here. It's like black as hell, like super dark, and kind of. There's one where, I'm amazed because I feel like video games so rarely like end on a bad note or end on such like a hopeless note. And I was amazed that both endings were equally grim.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably benefit of having a standalone thing like that, because if it was gonna connect more, they probably wouldn't have been that bold, I would guess, just because that's the limits of games. Like with design paths, why?
Well, Dying Light 2 takes place so much later, so
Okay, yeah. Well, then doing a time, I didn't know that, but yeah, like that could have benefited from it, but. That's why sometimes like I get optimistic about like standalone like sequels because they have like more freedom. They're not beholden to the established stuff. And some of the best things generally I've seen have been when they're afforded that creative freedom, where they don't have to work within those confines anymore. So sometimes what it takes. But like I also understand the flip side. It's like you put all this time in and it's billed as like an additional thing, and like it doesn't lead to a payoff that does that. And it's like, I don't know, it sounded like it was like worth your time though, like to see like a good like an ending that either way like subverted your expectations.
It definitely, God, those endings. I want to tell you guys what they were so bad because it's
off cam.
It's wild, but yeah, it did the thing that I think I kind of appreciate, where like the structure and the buggy felt kind of experimental, and it's like, okay, you didn't just make more Dynamite. Like you really added a twist to it here. Do I necessarily think it's like amazing? No, but it's kind of an interesting little thing.
You admire the change in the edition.
What felt very artificial though. So like going into the following, like at this point you already have firearms, and firearms I've already talked about like completely trivialize the game, and they make like basic things like not threatening at all. And I feel like the way the following tries to correct this is like you'll be driving on the road, and like anytime you need to stop and get gas, you'll get like a swarm of fast-moving zombies collapsing on you, or they'll like place things that make noise to have a swarm collapse on you in a way where it's like you're going to hit them, you're going to alert them. And so it just gets to a point where like every time you stop, it's like, okay, I got to clear out a swarm. And it doesn't feel like you're necessarily really doing anything wrong. It just feels like they're trying to offer some pushback, but it's not handled the best. But it's time for the HOTTAKE, and we're talking about Bungie and Sony. I know we already did a breaking news on this, but how do like on the day that this drops, how is this not the HOTTAKE?
Right, yeah.
So Sony bought Bungie, but there's a bunch of interesting stuff, and this information is coming from IGN, who got it from gamesindustry.biz. So just a few quick things before we get into this conversation. Sony bought Bungie for $3.6 billion. Jim Ryan says we should expect more acquisitions. And that PlayStation wants to grow beyond the historic console heartland. Bungie is currently working on more than just Destiny. We don't know what exactly, but there are other projects in the works. And Bungie is going to help PlayStation make live service multi-platform games. Sony has been pushing into the movie and TV show space. The IGN article brought this up. So you've got the Last of Us TV show, the Ghost of Tsushima movie, and Uncharted this month, or February. It's like, well, what if we got a Destiny movie or TV show that'd be interesting?
They had live action ads, didn't they, for Destiny?
I think they had live action ads. I think that's right. So Bungie will be an independent subsidiary, will remain multi-platform. On Bungie's website, they say, hey, the things that we are working on, we still intend for those to be multi-platform. And they've been very, very upfront, like, we want to remain multi-platform. We want the things that we already have to be able to play wherever you want.
Yeah.
Bungie can still independently publish and develop games, which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
And Sony will get Bungie's proprietary tools. I'm not exactly sure what those are, but I imagine it will help them in, say, the live service or multi-platform space. And so what's really interesting about this deal is, obviously Destiny, Bungie, huge names. PlayStation buys them up for billions of dollars, but it's not like we want Destiny to be exclusive.
Right.
It's the language of it is more, we want to use Bungie as a partner to grow the foundation of our business.
The PlayStation brand, yeah.
And so now that I have all the preamble out of the way, what do you think that this means for PlayStation moving forward, and does that reflect on the wider game industry at all?
Maybe stuff on other platforms day one. Maybe not just your PS5 exclusive and you get it on PC 4 years later or something like that. Maybe they're going to see what Microsoft's doing. They're like, we want a piece of that PC pie too.
So like right now with Xbox, right? So you get like Halo. You can get it on Xbox or PC. You know, it's believed that Sony has an Xbox Live competitor, or not an Xbox Live, a Game Pass competitor.
Spartacus.
Do you see that happening, Damiani? Do you see like Sony following that strategy of PC release simultaneously?
Yeah. I mean, I have to imagine that any acquisition, this one and any future ones that Jim Ryan alludes to, are in service of the new focus of when they're saying expanding PlayStation like that. It's not necessarily about moving hardware anymore, about moving consoles. It looks like a lot of the indicators are pointing towards the game industry is heading towards subscription service.
Yeah.
Game Pass started the rallying cry for it. It's taken off, and Microsoft has committed to it in a major way. They're in this for the long haul. I think Sony is seeing the writing on the wall, and this isn't. I don't think this is necessarily reactionary. I think they've, on their own, have been making these moves for a while behind the scenes, and I think we're going to see a world in the coming decade where games are going to be available on as many places as possible because it's the subscription. They want to get you to buy into their service. So the more places it can be, the more entry points to that, the more customers, the more dollars to get. It's not about everyone's making it about console wars with this, and this is ramping up that rhetoric. But I'm like, I don't think it's anything like that. I mean, yeah, that's a knee-jerk reaction, but these companies don't play like that anymore. And I don't see these moves as even being about that anymore. Yes, they're businesses, they want to do well, but I think part of it is they see that when one company is doing well, it means others are doing well. And if an acquisition can mean the long-term stability of a highly reputable, very successful studio, whereas it was independent, it might succumb to going under. Or the thing I wanted to make a point about as well, this could have also been keep it within kind of like the family, like the console, like the traditional game business. Who's to say this wasn't potentially they knew who else was bidding on this? What if a Facebook, an Amazon, a Google is in the market to buy these companies, but they are about exclusivity, all about walling these off? That could be bad for the game industry if a Bungie, or we were theorizing about like Capcom, like what if they were bought by one of these more non-traditional companies and it takes those IPs off the table for PC and console gamers? They're like just gonna be like mobile or on those own devices. That I see it as I see it as bad. Yes, they see dollar signs and it seems good to them, but like that could like hamper those studios that they would never be able to recover. Like I would imagine they'd be cut loose down the line when it doesn't pan out to be so successful. And then when they try and get back into the traditional game as it is right now, like things have moved on from them. So like Sony, I think, and Microsoft see that there is value to keeping the best players, the best developers, the best publishers in this field as long as possible, giving it what it takes to thrive, but also playing an angle where it's like, you doing well is well for us, but we need to find a way to like wed that in a business sense. And like hardware is the old way, subscriptions are the new way, and all this, again, this leads back to my first point. It all points towards that.
Yeah, I really do think it is a widening of the market and in a way that just was not possible before. Because like if you think of the traditional mindset, it was we need to get people to buy this box, and you couldn't have other ways to deliver content to people. It was like you buy the disc, you put it in your thing, that's how you get it. That's it. Whereas like you think of Netflix and you think like I would argue that most people probably have some device that plays Netflix, right? And so it is just so widespread on common everyday devices that is a reason for you to buy into that market. And you think about it from like, it's not about making the core console people go away. I think as Microsoft has proven, there's always going to be an audience that wants a high PC end experience. There's always going to be an audience that wants a new, faster, better console. It's not that's going to continue to exist in exactly or in a similar way that it is already existing. It's not that the console business is going away or it's being replaced, but it's about creating entirely new markets and people that like you just want to give people like less of an excuse in a way where it's like for a lot of people, right? Imagine you can only afford one console. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But it's like you might sign up for a service if you're like, well, I could check out these PlayStation games on my phone or my PC or whatever it is. It's like you just created a customer that otherwise would not have existed.
Yeah, you're seeing an incentive for it right now with how hard it is to find PlayStation 5s and Xbox Series X's specifically. And, that might have accelerated their thinking that, we're being hamstrung by this. But a lot of this also does depend on, like, the technology as well. And it's starting to get there because some of these devices won't be able to maybe natively play it at, like, the high end that you're talking about on the higher end PC or console. Whereas, like, this is where I think Microsoft has a little bit of an edge in all of this, not just with Game Pass, but also with their cloud-based service with xCloud. That's also going to be very important, is to get that part of the technology there as well, because subscription means I want to be able to play it on anything. And, like, when you think of Netflix, you can watch it on any device you have. Whereas right now with, like, Game Pass, like, I play it on PC and my console, but can I play it on my phone just yet? And it's like that's where they need to get to. Like, it needs to be so ubiquitous.
And that's what's so interesting about this purchase is I feel like it's very clearly signaling the future, where you're right. It's like the things that we're talking about aren't necessarily happening right now, but it's very obvious the direction that things are going.
Yeah.
I think the other part of this that is interesting is buying Bungie specifically and looking at Destiny and leaning on them, where it's like Destiny's been around like what? Since 2017, 2018?
Yeah, something like that.
And then, you also think about Destiny 1. And so Destiny is this game that they're constantly bolting things onto their... They're making, something that lasts for years. And Sony right now has incredible first-party talent, first-party studios, but a lot of the games that they're making are very condensed games where, you play through them.
Single player.
There might be DLC down the line, but, they're open and closed games, right?
Yeah.
I just with this acquisition and the language that they're using, I have to imagine that they're looking at either new things or things that they already have, and they're going, how can we make these huge investments, these super high budget games, how can we make that last longer and continually?
They don't have FPSs either.
Right.
And so Bungie does. So, I could totally see them doing like their own live service, free-to-play multiplayer game or something like that.
Definitely
Battle Royale or something. Yeah.
I mean, what did they lose? Lost Killzone? Or not lost, but like they're not actively
no
making
Killzone, no
Resistance. And it's like, of who's left out there, the biggest names is like Bungie, and then unless you're going to buy all of EA, Respawn, it's like...
Activision gone. So
It also worries me, though, because like while I see it from that perspective, I feel like games that are continuous and constantly have new events and things, I feel like I'm drowning in the sense like there's so many things that I want to play that I just can't.
Yep.
And
it's like TV shows. It's too many.
It's like if you lean into that even more, how many of these things can the market reasonably support?
That's a very good question.
Yeah.
And I think I don't think enough developers think that through.
Yeah, ask Hyperscape.
Yeah, exactly. It's like this whale they're chasing, and they think it's like a worthwhile endeavor, even if it fails, because like if they hit it, they strike gold. But yeah, there's only so much you can support because like there's so much time for everyone. You can't even play more than one of these. Like it's struggled to play like 2 or 3 of these, and like, but so yes, I do think it's a danger to think that like you're like going to push out multiple of these. Like you got to be cautious about that. However, what I do see is, to your point about not having enough time, there are people who only play like maybe 1 or 2 games.
Yep.
Like,
in
a traditional sense, we talk about like people only play Madden or Grand Theft Auto, and like those are the big buys every year. I think as we get old, and it's still going to be probably that way with Grand Theft Auto 6, but we're seeing other people that I only play Fortnite. I only play Apex Legends or like any one of those top 10 Twitch games. And like, I think it is fair to assume there are people who are out there, a decent amount of people out there who they like that. They only want to play a game.
Yeah.
And so like I think Destiny or Destiny's successor, whatever they're planning to do with Bungie, if they're going to go that angle, I think they have the pedigree and they have the established thing that they could do that. Right. So I think if that's their plan, I do think this is primed more for success with this specific buy. And that would make more sense to me why they would do that and why it's going to be kept multi-platform, because you have to have that be a multi-platform experience.
Player base.
You cannot make that a console exclusive, because then you're walling off your player base and you're setting yourself up to fail.
There's a couple of things that I want to ask, but you mentioned like there are some people that are only play one of these types of games or are heavily invested in one of these types of games, and that's totally true. And what's also interesting about this market is it almost creates like its own opportunities in a way, because, you know, going back to Destiny, right? Destiny is very big and its player base is very solidified, I feel like. And it's been able to sustain itself over a long period of time, but in a way, the longer that time goes on, I feel like more of a mental barrier forms with new players, right? Where a lot of people are probably like, oh man, this has been going on for how long? Like, I'm so far behind, right? And it's just like, no matter what you do, that sentiment is going to exist. And so if you introduce something where you're like, this is it, this is the ground floor, you know, that opens up incredible opportunities for you.
Oh, yeah.
And I have to imagine, and maybe this is too much, but I have to imagine, like, if subscriptions are going to be more prioritized, you would want to find, like, every incentive you possibly could to get people to sign up for that subscription, right? Across, like, your large platform. So if you do make this live service game, it's like, you're going to get some sort of benefit for probably having the subscription.
Oh, absolutely. The Battle Pass. You're going to get access to the Battle Pass.
Exactly.
Like, it'll be included with your Sony Plus subscription. Yeah, that's absolutely what's going to be.
It's just like...
Destiny bucks.
Right. Like, it's going to get to a point where... Because, like, I even feel this way with, like, Netflix right now, where it's like, I can't get rid of Netflix. Like, there's too much stuff I want to watch on there. And, like, I feel like it's that way with Game Pass, right? Where it's like, I couldn't even imagine, like, not having this.
I mean, and with Sony especially, they could start leveraging some of their other stuff. They got Crunchyroll. They got Aniplex. They got.
I absolutely bet they're going to do that.
Like like this is just the first step, is like getting games to a subscription service, and then the further step, I mean, it might happen faster, is these companies are going to leverage all their IPs and mediums, whether they're movies, TV shows, or video games. Because Netflix is already doing that. Netflix has a gaming library now that you could play of like kind of like mobile style games.
Yeah,
and they're
just briefly glancing at it though, I was like, I don't want to play any of this, you know?
Yeah, but imagine Sony,
right.
like Spartacus Plus or whatever. It's like, it comes with all this access, comes with Battle Pass, some of your favorite like games like Destiny 3 or whatever it's going to be. Plus you get your like anime subscription service on top of that. So like it's all in one bundle.
The rumored is like there's going to be PS1, 2, and 3 games on there. So it's like,
retro catalogs.
Yeah.
Like,
and like Sony has a killer retro catalog.
Yeah. So,
shit.
Yeah, I guess just my fear is I feel like there's a decent balance right now between games that are continual and games that I can just like play and love and enjoy on both like a big and small scale. Yeah. And obviously I think with indie games and things like that, on some level that will always exist.
Definitely.
But like, I don't want to get to a point where it's like, oh man, most of like the big name things that I love have a battle pass or something, and obviously I'm being too reductive. But the point that I'm trying to get at is like I don't want everything to live forever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get to a point where I can't physically buy a game anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. I think that it's a similar sentiment that we're trying to describe. Like even now, like I miss that Bungie isn't making smaller games.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right.
Wild day, wild month for news.
It's like, what next?
We're just getting started.
What's next week?
I think it was Keeley that was like, all of these gigantic purchases have happened. These 3 gigantic purchases have happened, and it's just January, right? Like,
yeah, it's crazy, man.
I don't know. I kind of feel like 2022 is gonna be pretty damn
popping
wild.
Off.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy 16.
Final Fantasy 16.
Breath of the Wild 2. Elden Ring.
Woo. Are we ready for some emails?
Yeah, sure.
Talking about exclusivity, this one's from Peter. Kind of we were talking, or he's responding to Huber. Okay. I'll get into it. Hi, Ben. At the time of writing, discussion of game exclusivity is rife following the Microsoft Activision news, and I've just listened to the podcast where, paraphrasing, Huber states that as a consumer, you always want games to be as freely available on as many systems as possible. The sentiment being that game exclusivity is only good for Sony/Microsoft/Nintendo, etc., and is not good for the typical customer that can only afford one video game system. To play devil's advocate, I am sure that the extremely high quality of system-exclusive games like Zelda/Mario/God of War/Spider-Man is not an accident. Sony and Nintendo will be fully aware that they have to invest huge amounts of money and patience into development of those titles, way beyond what might be possible for a non-exclusive title. One of the key business cases for that level of investment is the system seller angle. If you go way over budget on one killer title that convinces consumers to buy your system, there's a good chance they then go on to buy all their other largely non-exclusive games on the same system after the fact.
True.
So from that perspective, exclusivity has some huge upsides for the consumer. It arguably helps motivate Sony and Nintendo to fund games with enormous budgets that we wouldn't see otherwise. No matter which system you own, odds are you have access to a few titles that were made possible by this mechanism. For Xbox owners, if we suddenly start seeing Call of Duty games with 5-year development cycles and 9 out of 10 Metacritic scores in the coming years, we'll have a good idea why. So the argument here being that because they are exclusive, they are of a higher quality and more is invested into them. And I think that there is some logic there. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that necessarily translates to it being universally good for the consumer in the sense that, like, he brings up, like, if you can only afford one console, like, you're still limited by your budget. Like, it would be better for you if you could experience more awesome games on that budget. So I'm not sure it answers that problem.
The only thing I think about is, like, the more platforms available that you have to do stuff for. I'm not a game developer, so I'm probably not right about this, but it's like you can only focus so much on one thing. And I think of just Battlefield 2042, just like a disaster everywhere because there's so many platforms that have to do. Like, when you think about, like, a first-party game done by, like, Nintendo or PlayStation or whatever, it's, like, usually pretty high quality because they focus on one or two platforms only. Mm-hmm. So they probably have more time to polish things up.
Yeah.
So you could get a better game by it only being developed for a system or two instead of a wide range of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess maybe I could look at it in the way that if you only buy one console but it has a lot of exclusives, it means you're still getting a good amount of, like, high quality games, is I guess what they're arguing. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm trying to see, like, their point here that, like, with Nintendo, it's like, okay, cool, they're gonna have like 5 or 6 big first party releases a year, but to them, if that's what they like and they think they're high enough quality, that's all they need for a year. Whereas they buy a system and it's like exclusively multi-platform games, you might not ever get that high of a quality experience despite, you know, having a larger selection. So maybe, like, only needing one system and having a smaller selection of games, like, they're trading quality for quantity, I guess. But, like, you're still denying yourself, like, there's no denying that if you only play on Switch, you are missing out on some great first party games on both Microsoft and Sony. And, like, for me personally, like, Sony first party games, like, there's some of those, like, wait, I don't ever get to play those. Like, that seems ludicrous. Like, I mean, the best answer is, like, to get as many platforms as you can. Mm-hmm. And I think, but there's some truth to what you're saying, I think, Brad. Like, people would counter and be like, well, Nintendo, imagine if Zelda was multi-platform, then you get a PlayStation 5 version that looked amazing and stuff. It's like, but would it really be the same quality if they had to, like, make multiple versions of that? Would there be a noticeable dip in quality potentially for that game? And, like, because it had to deal with multiple platforms? I think the best solution would be, like, Nintendo just get better hardware. That's a whole other discussion, yes. But that's the real answer to that question. I have a hard time seeing, like, I feel like there are examples of multi-platform games that do end up going very well. Yeah. So, like,
that's something that I wanted to bring up. Where it's like, so I'm not sure.
It doesn't doom it to, like, lower quality per se.
It doesn't
right. It's like
case by case.
Yes, there are many excellent first-party games, but, you know, I don't think it's exclusively true that first-party games are better than third-party games.
Yeah.
To kind of bounce off your point, Brad, about the focus on developing for a smaller amount of platforms could improve quality. I totally see where you're coming from, and I think in the past that was more true than it is now, where I think
it's easier now.
I think like architectures of these systems are more similar, and so it's easier to develop across them than it was in the past.
Not dealing with the cell processor in a PS3 anymore.
And I think this email pairs really well with the HOTTAKE in the sense that, like, if your incentive is to get people to sign up for a service, you're still going to need that quality. You know, like Netflix still really leans on its Squid Games and its Stranger Things. Mm-hmm. You know, yes, it has volume, but it also needs those like high quality things to get.
Yeah, I don't think those would go away from multi-platform at all. Especially as you said, like nowadays, it's more likely that you'd get potentially even bigger tentpoles, as big as any first-party Nintendo or Sony or Microsoft game is. Like the Grand Theft Auto just blows all of it away. Like, come on, like you can't even compete with that.
Grand Theft Auto, Minecraft, Fortnite.
The upper echelon of what you could do, because those are the true tentpole events. Yeah. Like that's what people dream of when you think of like people who are more like in tune with the single console. Like you come from like Nintendo, you dream of like that Zelda that's on every platform that looks like God tier and like sells like 50 million copies or some crap like that. It's like, I mean. But the Wild sold 25 plus roughly, so it's almost there. But I mean, doing like GTA numbers in Zelda, Mario, or like you know, Sony first party game doing that as well, like would be like awesome because they went multi-platform. But I mean that's a dream. But then again, my question, like to be devil's advocate, why like some of these PC ports are just bad too. Like how many of these PC ports have we gotten? And like it's supposed to like because you're talking about like architecture and stuff. It's like they just don't prioritize. Some of these companies just do not prioritize. PC ports. It absolutely sucks.
I feel like what you're saying is true, but I feel like not all that long ago, like PC ports were way worse. Oh, and so I feel I feel like we've gotten better to where like it doesn't rattle me as much.
I just feel bad for PC gamers because this is like promised land of multi-platform. Yeah, it's great for console people so far. Right, but then you get to PC land, it's like, man, there's been a lot of like string of this disappointed ports after port after port. And it's like they're just waiting for it to be like treated as an equal when they have like the best hardware. It's like
and they usually have to wait like way long after the fact.
Yep.
Whereas, next email is a short and sweet but good one. This comes in from Isaac, who asks, "Hi, allies. Who are some gaming personalities you would want to come on Frame Trap?"
Gaming?
I would love to have any sort of conversation with Mike Ross. Any.
Oh, Mike Ross. Dude. That's a great pick. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
It's weird though because I feel like the longer I've done this job, the less I've consumed.
Yes, same. It's because you live it.
Personality.
We live it.
Like video game personality content, and so like I feel like I would have had many answers a long time ago, but that list has dried up.
Yeah, well, it's like I get to talk to you guys about games all the time, so it's like I get that out of me a lot with you guys. Man. I don't know who I want. Come back to me.
I also feel like I've been doing this long enough where that like level of starstruckness is not the same as it was.
Oh, sure. You know? Yeah. Now we're old and jaded.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I also have the benefit that like I do kind of do that. I mean, this is for Frame Trap specifically, so getting to talk more in depth of the games, you know, there's obviously more opportunities, but doing this like on friend code, I am able to have like guests on when it's appropriate. But like, I still feel like there's so many people I just like don't remember in the moment. I'm like, gosh darn it, why didn't I ask this person? And like, someone will reach out to me and tell me about this person I haven't heard of. I'm like, oh man, I like haven't heard of you, but yeah, I'll definitely try and get you on. That's how I kind of go about it. I feel like the thing is now it's not so much I've gotten to like talk to, or at least engage in some capacity of a lot of the YouTube content creators. Like same as like you were saying, you like looked up to when you started out. Like I kind of already got to like do that to an extent. Yeah. For me, it's like maybe like the Twitch creators, but some of them feel like so beyond me in terms of their level. Sure. It's like unapproachable almost.
I was thinking, God, it's so true. I was thinking about that, Damiani, and how like a lot of the gaming content I consume now is on Twitch. And it just feels like a totally different league, you know. But it also feels like the modern League.
Yeah, like if you want to have a deep dive in a game, it's like you
Right.
find a big Twitch streamer on that game category. It's like, hey, do you want to come in and talk about this? And like, but the thing is, like, oh, like, are we gonna stream this? Like, you do like a recorded podcast. Even that to them, they're like, they probably know what that is, but they're like, man, that seems archaic, or that's like, I'm used to doing it live and stuff.
Yeah,
And it's like, okay, well, where's my sub alerts and stuff? Like, well, yeah, it doesn't exist.
There was this Monster Hunter Rise thing with PC, and I don't remember exactly what it was. So if I get the details wrong, forgive me. But there was like some partner thing where they're like, go watch these creators, and it was all like, it wasn't like traditional games. I mean, it was all like individual Monster Hunter streamers, and that makes sense. It's like, why would you prioritize somebody where your game is only a small part of what they talk about versus somebody who spends, hours a day streaming it? It's like, that's where you want the focus to be.
I don't know. I liked. We got to talk with Max a couple times. I like talking Final Fantasy VII with him. Obviously, I love that game.
I was gonna bring up Max too. It was nice
a good guy.
Because we had Max on an episode of Frame Trap, and we just talked a lot about fighting games, and it was nice getting somebody that was like more knowledgeable and experienced.
Yeah,
in that
I like
area.
talking to someone like something that I don't really know a lot about. Just getting different perspective.
I think it'd be interesting to get like the Digital Foundry guys, and just have them be able to illuminate us on
totally
on aspects that we don't have as good of a grasp on.
I'd also want to get this Twitch streamer's name Distortion too. He's a speedrunner.
Yeah,
he does a lot of Souls games. I would just like, I just want to pick his brain and like see how or hear how he dissects like a game from like a totally different perspective. Like how he plays that game is so different than how like all of us play a game.
Yep. Man, some of these streamers, like what is it, Baka Soup? I think is his name.
Baka Soup, yeah.
He'll be like, okay, for this stream, I'm speed running all of the Resident Evil games,
like
or
like an
8-game
speed
run marathon. It's just like,
we're doing
holy
it.
shit,
dude. Let's get Eris avoiding the puddle.
Oh my god,
He'd just be pissed at
Eris
us.
is a great answer.
Yeah.
Yes, Eris is a great answer. All right, our last email comes in from Matthew. Hey, Ben and panel. I'm finally finding a little time to play Deathloop. It's really got its hooks in me so far, and it's only my second day. I love the Dishonored games, but Deathloop had me wondering, do I like this game more because it's present day? Is it the arsenal, the color in the world, or just the advances in technology? From what I've read, Deathloop sold pretty well, even though it sold pretty poorly, even though it reviewed well. It never quite hit that Dishonored high. It seems like there's something I'm missing. Why do you think it didn't perform despite how well it reviewed?
That's a good question. Maybe when people found out what the game was. I think a lot of people were confused about what this game was in general for a long time, including me.
Yeah.
Or a lot of us, like, we didn't know what the hell this game was really, There's a million trailers. I'm like, what is this game exactly? It's like a roguelite, I guess, but how does it work essentially?
I do think that confusion is I wasn't thinking about that, but I think that's a good point. I also feel like, and I don't know where I said this on what show, but it was like, man, I feel like because it came out, right? And GameSpot gave it a 10 and IGN gave it a 10, right? And I felt like the Deathloop conversation was done in like a week. And like,
sure,
it was it kind of blew up and then it just kind of died. And I have to wonder if that's because for a lot of people, they had a response to it that I kind of had where it's like, hey, it's a cool game. It's definitely got some problems, right? And so maybe it just wasn't. It just wasn't that.
Yeah.
That it didn't hit that level where it really
must play.
Yeah, I think a lot of people played it, and I think a lot of people enjoyed it, but I don't necessarily think it was a lot of individual consumers' game of the year.
I don't think Dishonored 2 sold that well.
Sure.
And that was on 3 platforms, and I don't think Praey sold that well. So it could just be a problem for Arcane right now. Like, yeah, Dishonored 1 did really good, but I don't know.
Yeah, I do have to wonder.
Think they did super, super well.
If just the elaborate structure
of that kind of game,
kinds of games
might be intimidating for people.
Yeah, if it's beyond.
Like you show someone the menu in Deathloop of like all the notes and stuff, that might be quite overwhelming for them.
I think that's a good reason, Brad.
Yeah. Anecdotally, just felt like a lot of the outlets and media were very high on this game in its release window, but again, anecdotally, just from people I engage with online, that there was like a disconnect between what outlets were saying about the game and what everyone's friends were saying about the game. Where, as you said, like they tried, like they were having friends who played it for a bit and were like, "Oh, you get to this part, it's super easy. Like the illusions shattered so soon," and it's like. It almost echoed a little bit what Huber was describing the game to me a few times, with like his chief complaints with the game, but these people seemed a little bit more harsh on it in general. So I think maybe it's just like that happens sometimes in any medium where like critics love it, fans pan it, and they weren't panning this, but like they just weren't eating it up as well, and so they weren't willing to take the plunge because it's about sales. They're like, oh, I'm hearing from my friends who I probably trust more than any critic that they're not enjoying it. Well, then I'm just not going to play it, or I'll wait for it to go on sale or something.
And like when 10s are dealt out, it comes with a lot of expectations. Someone plays it, like saying a 10 sucks or something like that. Right, easily spread to a friend.
Sure.
I think that's absolutely true.
It can even be unfair poor word of mouth, which like the game is actually good, but someone that people trust internally, and then they just start spreading. That's how it works, unfortunately.
Yeah, Brad, I think you're totally right. I do think that the 10 can cast a weird cloud.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it definitely does
for sure. All right, that is going to do it for Frame Trap. Thank you so much to Michael Damiani and Brad Ellis. If you want to write in, you want to give us something to pick our brains, the address is askeasyallies@gmail.com. One more time, that is askeasyallies@gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.